Hmm? Ah!
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/GOM. There's almost 250,000 titles to choose from for any platform you want to listen from.
It's not slander if it's true.
And what's this truth you plan on telling him today?
Why are you so nervous about what I'm going to say to Father?
Because you're a liar. I expect you'll tell lies about me, about Joffrey.
Any lies in particular?
You're a clever man. But you're not half as clever as you think you are.
Still makes me more clever than you.
Good morrow, wisdoms and red priestesses, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, tapper of the 0 Point.
And I'm Lady Kristen of House McWegglebergino, holder of dogs. I had nothing.
And this is Game of Microphones, episode 63.
On this episode of our series Rewatch, we're covering Game of Thrones Season 3, Episode 1, Valar Dohaeris. Dohaeris or Dohaeris?
I've heard it a couple different ways. People say Dohaeris or Dohaeris or Dohaeris. I don't know.
It depends how high Valerian you really are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Depends about your social status.
And what else you're bastardizing it with.
Right, exactly. Valar Dohaeris. That's how we're going to say it today.
Valar Dario Naharis.
Yes, Valar Dario Naharis. Mariska Haggerty.
Oh, man. I lost where we were. Okay. And just in case you're not familiar already, this is a spoiler-filled podcast from the perspective of someone who's current at Season 7, Episode 7. So enter at your own risk.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
I'm so excited we're in Season 3.
Oh, I know. This is a good Season 2. I'd say that about every season, though.
Well, Storm of Swords is one of my top 3 books I've ever read of all time.
Oh, wow.
So I was really excited to get to Seasons 3 and 4 because they split up those 2 seasons.
Oh, right. They split that book into 2 seasons.
Which I think was brilliant. I think
definitely.
It's the best book of all of them. That's just in my opinion. And
I'm sure a lot of people agree.
They did a fantastic job with book to script or book to
yeah.
film.
Book to screen.
Whatever you want to call it.
Page to pixel.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, first impression, what do you think of this episode?
You know what? I really liked it. I liked the setup. I liked kind of getting started. It was kind of like we didn't, and I know that we only podcasted on the finale last week, but there was no real sense of lag time. Like they kind of picked up right where they left off.
None of that famous Game of Thrones 50 weeks off or longer.
Right, exactly. You're like, it has not been 6 months this time. Because I think between Season 1 and Season 2, I think we established it had been 6 months, right?
Oh, in terms of the time gap?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it.
I think we actually mentioned it. It was a long time ago that we talked about it.
Yeah, 10 weeks. Wow, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Time flies.
I know. How about you?
I love it, man. This anything. There's just so much good stuff in this episode. I don't want to talk about it until we get to our top 5. So let's just jump right in so we can start talking to it.
Bing, bing, bing.
You want to go first?
Sure. I have like a lot of kind of like broad ideas
Awesome.
this week. But I just wanted to talk about the cold open for a second.
Ooh, yes, good point. I hadn't realized this is like the first cold open or second or something.
Second, yeah, the second
besides
cold
from the
open.
premiere, right?
So I looked up online because I know that they don't make a habit out of cold opens, this particular show, and they have done 6 cold opens total so far through season 7.
Yeah, wow.
The first one was season 1, episode 1, when it was The Wall. Hang on one second. Okay. With the scene north of the wall, introducing the White Walkers and the Night Watch. Season 3, episode 1, which was this week, that begins with Sam Tarly fleeing the Whites and White Walkers, that we'll talk about in just a second. Season 4, episode 1 was Ice getting forged into Oathkeeper and Widow's Wail. Season 5, episode 1 was Cersei and the Maggie the Frog prophecy. Season 6, episode 7 was my second favorite cold open, which was the Hound reappearing in our life.
The Broken Man.
Yeah.
That's a great episode.
And then season 7, episode 1 with my all-time favorite cold open, which was Arya killing off the entire Frey house.
Extinguished.
So there's some pretty big moments that they chose to do for the cold opens, and this is really no different. You know, Sam just escaped inexplicably from the White Walkers to the answer that surrounded. We still don't really have.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then I noticed when he does, you know, the first words out of his mouth is brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I just think is so profound anyways, considering, you know, this friendship that that Jon and Sam have. Because when he turns and he sees this headless watchman, I noticed the head kind of looks like Jon a little bit.
Oh, man.
Which probably kind of sent him reeling a little bit. And then all of a sudden, Ghost comes out of nowhere, which, you know, Ghost doesn't go out of his way for just anybody.
Yeah,
but
that's a great
loves
point, too.
Sam.
That's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that. Or I hadn't really even connected that, oh, Ghost is here without Jon. I was just like, oh, cool, Ghost. You know what I mean? Like, right, I'm just kind of like taking notes, like not necessarily picking up on everything. Like, that's awesome, though. Yeah, it's so great to see Ghost. I love that pup, man.
I do too. I miss the dire wolves.
Me too. I hope we get a good amount in season 7 or season 8. I'm hoping for dire wolf army. You know, the generals of Nymeria and Ghost heading up this massive wolf pack from all around Westeros that Nymeria has been gathering for the past years, while Arya has been gathering her faceless man skills. Arya's been gathering faces and Nymeria's been gathering wolves.
So like they come in at the last of the battle, like kind of like the Knights of the Vale and Battle of the Bastards, where like it looks like it's lost, and then there's like burr, 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 and you see all these wolves just descend on all these people.
Yeah, except instead of burr, 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 it's oh,
exactly.
you know, and then just
that's much better. Yeah,
the wolves just come in. It'll be like won't be attacking people because it'll be they wouldn't know who's good and who's bad, right? But if it's an army of the dead versus an army of humans, they'll know who to attack.
Yes.
Right? So we're gonna see.
And Ghost and Nymeria like lock eyes, and they're like la 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 la.
Or they're like they're like fighting, you know, and stuff, and they run past each other and like high paw each other.
We should just write fan fiction.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We can train our own animals to act it out too.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Travis, we'll use Travis's wolves.
Yeah.
Keep it in the family.
And Loki, my parrot, he can be the dragon.
There you go. That's perfect. Maggie will be my dog, Maggie. She'll just be the old blind maester up at the wall.
Oh, Spunk could do that too.
So anyways, that was kind of my number 5.
Nice.
Just the cold open in general, which I love a good cold open. So.
Yeah, me too. It's always, you know, an impactful moment when you have like some tense thing happen and then boom, 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 you know, and it cuts into the credits of whatever show you're watching at the time, you know.
but the Game of Thrones, I've seen comments with people saying like, why do we have to hear Game of Thrones all the time? Like, why can't they shorten it and then we'll have more story?
Right, you love
and it's
it.
like, because it's amazing.
Yeah,
because
it's
I get out
incredible.
my stupid pen and I think I'm a freaking conductor
You're
for the
Ramin
next
Djawadi,
2 minutes. Yeah.
Oh man, that's great.
Best music ever.
I love that voicemail that we got from Anthony a couple months ago too. I don't know if you remember, but he was like, dun, 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 dun. It's
Oh, yeah.
so fucking pumped. That was great. Call
It's
back,
the
Anthony.
Sing more.
Yeah.
Sweet friend. How about you? What was your number 5?
My number 5 is the Tyrion and Bronn scene that we got. Because
Oh, cool.
they're just awesome. And last episode at the Battle of the Blackwater, a couple episodes ago, last time we saw them interact, we learned that they are in fact friends, remember? So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. They took their friendship to like, solidified it as a friendship. And in this one, Bronn plays off of that to get Tyrion to pay him a whole lot more money, but it's great though because it makes sense. He's right. I agree with his logic. Tyrion does too. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone along with it, right? But that's how much they respect each other. Tyrion has this huge respect for Bronn. Bronn has a huge respect for Tyrion, so much so that he's about to get his freak on with this lovely hottie, and Pod interrupts him, and Jerome Flynn does an amazing acting job here as he looks so perturbed as he's so into this moment, and Pod interrupts him. It's like, you're gonna leave or I will kill you, Pod.
It's like, I will murder you.
So that's great. And then when he finally shows up, right, and he puts the Kingsguard in their places, oh, look at these two shining warriors. And he's calling them names. Sir Terran Mant and Sir Who's It of Who Cares?
Yeah.
And they respond, you're just some up-jumped cutthroat, nothing more. And he's like, that's exactly who I am.
I love it that they can't insult him. That's
Right.
my favorite part.
And Tyrion, it's too bad that he's inside the little room there because he'd be so proud at this moment. They're using his up-jumped cutthroat sellsword status against him, right? And he wears it like armor, just like Tyrion says to do to Jon Snow with his bastardy, right? So Bronn wears it like armor, so nobody can hurt him with it, and basically is about to fight his way in. And it's great too because he would cut these guys apart, especially at close distance like that. He'd probably be able to prevent one from pulling their sword while he attacks the other one.
According to the Hound, Meryn fucking
Right,
Trant
Meryn
is,
fucking Trant.
is a cunt. So
Yeah, totally. And there's a great moment where they start they're not letting him through, and he starts to get frustrated, and you can tell that he's starting to get annoyed because there's this brief little micro expression on Bronn's face where it flickers across his face, and I'm just consistently impressed with Jerome Flynn and his subtleties as this character, whether he's portraying extreme confidence and swagger, or just little tiny details like this, expressing his frustration combined with his cockiness. He's a very talented actor. So that was really cool. And it seems like Bronn knows some inside information. Like he must hear things about Meryn Trant from these brothels that Meryn Trant goes to. Because what does he say about him? And one of our listeners pointed this out too.
Oh, yeah. He said something about, because they said something about little girls and boys, or something about little
you're
girls.
You're a grub in fancy armor who's better at beating little girls than fighting men.
Right.
So we see him doing that in season 6 when before Arya takes him out. That's what he's doing. He's beating little girls. Like he literally, that's his thing. Bronn knows for a fact.
Well, yeah. Well, everybody saw him beat Sansa.
That as well. They walked in on that. And the scene that we got earlier with Cersei talking with Tyrion and about how Tyrion slandered her by telling Tywin the truth about how she had a servant girl beaten till she lost an eye. That reminded me of that scene where Joffrey had Sansa beaten as well. So maybe Cersei was more Joffrey-like in her youth than we previously may have believed or understood.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later.
Awesome, yeah.
Because
So he's about to go in there, and he has that look on his face, and there's a Ramin Djawadi, and just the cinematography and everything is brilliant here. Right, he sort of reaches back for his kukri like he did with the Hound, and there's an orchestral swell that takes place, and it's building up beautifully as the tension is climaxing at that moment, and then whoosh, the door opens as Cersei comes out, which is a great scene. Just the way that everything was arranged there was really, really well done. So that was cool. So he meets up with Tyrion. They're walking along. Oh, actually, the first before I get there too, that he when he uses that line like armor, he says, "That's exactly who I am." It reminded me of this moment in the movie Juice. You ever see that movie? Mm-mm. With Tupac. He's like, "That's exactly who I am." Somebody tells Tupac, he's like, "You're fucking crazy, man." He's like, "You're right. I am crazy. And you know what else? I don't give a fuck." Right? Yeah. So he kind of like spins it on him like, "Yeah, you know, I am," you know, and that's sort of like the same thing that Bronn did here. So that reminded me of that. So he's walking along with Tyrion, and you can tell how much he respects Tyrion because he's being very, very polite for having just been interrupted with a lovely lady. He says, "As much as I appreciate a walk in the sunshine, your lordship, I'm wondering why you sent for me." Like, he was telling Pod he was going to kill him, but he's being so nice to Tyrion here. Also, because he's buttering him up, realizing that, you know, he's been called away from being with whores. I need to be paid more for this to be worth it, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about thinking about what you're saying about him being so polite, and he's
buttering him up. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also, you know, before, I mean, the Hound told Bronn, you know, very astutely last week, "Hey, listen, you know, the only thing that we like, or we like more than anything else, is killing people." And so Bronn thought that he was going to get to go kill some people. So yeah, he chose that over anything else, right?
Oh, right. That's great.
So
wow.
he was ready to kill the two Kingsguards. You know, I mean, that with the Hound in that scene in the bar, he just had his hand on the knife. But
oh, right. Here he had it partially pulled out.
Here, he actually had it pulled out, and he was stepping towards them. He was going to kill them.
That's awesome.
So I appreciated that. I appreciated that we saw that he was ready to kind of go through with it, and he wasn't just threatening to do it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I agree. And he's the man,
Sorry,
too.
I liked what you were saying about that, but I was like stuck on that last moment.
No, that's important, too. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's true. Even when that scene where he's with, you know, where he's talking about that, and the Hound says that, you know, we both like killing, you know, that's our thing. Yeah. He has a naked chick on his lap at that moment, too, and he taps her to get off and goes to fight the Hound instead, you know?
He will choose a good fight over any woman. Yeah. He just will.
He's like, "Oh, the moon door? That'll make this fight interesting. I'll do it." So that's great.
You fight with no honor. Yeah, he did.
He did. He's the best. So he goes in this monologue, and he's asking Tyrion why he's there, and he says a number of people want him to kill him. And he's like, "You know, I'm always protecting you." And he's like, "What, are you getting bored?" And he's like, "No, I'm getting poor." Right? So poor. Yeah. "Under my patronage, you've become a knight. You've served as commander of the city watch." Briefly. Mm-hmm. It's like, "I'm sure you filled your pockets, and now my pockets are empty. You've given me a taste for the finer things. Right. And if you want me to carry on protecting you, you'll need to pay more." Which is brilliant. I agree with his logic. You know, Tyrion is, he's raised him to a level that he would not have expected before. He's given him a position of a high command in court, essentially, you know, in the King's Landing. He's now a knight, which means something, you know, and it means something for your pay. Like, a knight is he's like, he says here, you know, he's like, "I'm a knight now. Knights are worth double." You know, that's true. Right? Yeah. So, like, he's right, and Tyrion knows it, and he knows that he's worth it. Like, he's that good of a fighter. He's that great of a companion. He's that loyal, you know, and he knows Tyrion will pay double for whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and he knows that Tyrion has been holed up in this little, you know, room. It's pretty obvious he has not left this room yet.
Right.
And he is just now stepping outside, dressed, walking around among people because he feels safe with Bronn. And Bronn probably knows that.
Yeah.
And so he's going to exploit that as much as he can.
Definitely. And, I mean, he's going to exploit it to a point, but not like overexploit it, because he does respect Tyrion, but he also knows that Tyrion is fucking loaded. And that if he does, like he says, I don't even know how much I'm paying you now. That means you can afford more, So,
right.
And since they are good friends, like it just makes more sense. You should pay him more, You should hook him up.
Absolutely.
So I just love this scene. I love how their friendship is developing and how it's been extremely mutually beneficial for both parties. Like the symbiotic nature of this relationship can't be overstated. They really benefit each other. So it ends up working out well here for everybody, which I like. And it's not something that happens all the time in this show. So a moment of goodness. And I like when Bronn gets stuff too. You know that. One
of Tyrion's last jovial moments. We're on borrowed time with Tyrion right now as far as the joy and the lightness goes,
Yeah, for sure.
In a couple of episodes, things go dark and twisty for the poor guy.
Things get real dark.
Yeah. Like crate dark on a ship.
Yeah. Like pushing your poop through a hole in a crate type dark. Oh, that's great. So that pretty much wraps up my number 5. What about your number 4?
My number 4, I was actually thinking about the title of the episode, and Valar Dohaeris.
All men must serve.
All men must serve. And so I thought about I was like, well, the phrase is not uttered in this
episode.
In this entire episode, nor do we see anybody from Bravos or the Faceless Men or anything like that. There's no indication as to why other than it is the answer to the title of the finale last season. So I thought about the whole idea of serving. Cool. And all men must serve, and we've got a lot of servitude in this episode. So
yeah, we do.
I wrote it all down.
Awesome.
So we have Jon is going to the King Beyond the Wall, and we'll talk about it later, but he has knelt before Tormund, right? But he is ready to serve the King in the North, or the King Beyond the Wall. So you've got that servitude. You have Sam, who is in constant servitude to everybody on the watch, including
poor Sam,
the Lord Commander. I know, poor guy. You have Marjorie, who decides to step out of her carriage and going to serve the people. She wants to let them know that the royal family is going to be there for them, and that they're going to do anything that they can to help them get back on their feet. Here's some food. Here's some toys. Here you go, children. Your fathers served us well, so we will serve you back. Barristan Selmy at the end in a triumphant moment.
Yes.
He decides kneels and he requests to be of servitude to Daenerys.
Beautiful
he requests
moment.
to be in her queen's guard.
Yeah.
Tyrion serves his father the best way he can. Bronn.
Tywin serves him too. Jeez.
Oh, yeah. Bronn and Podrick, they serve Tyrion. Roz and Shay talk about the people that they serve. They serve Sansa and Littlefinger, and they talk about what that's like for each of them. You have the Unsullied, who serve the Astapor slavers. You have Missandei, who we see for the first time, and she is serving the slavers. You have Davos, who goes back to Dragonstone to serve Stannis. Stannis, who serves Melisandre, who serves the Lord of Light. It's all this big servitude or cycle of servitude.
And you thought you couldn't pick themes from this show.
Jason does. I could do it just fine.
Oh, right.
But yeah, so I just thought that was just kind of a nice little thematic ribbon that was throughout the entire episode of what all men must serve kind of means in this world. In different parts of the world, everybody's got their own thing going on, and everybody's just trying to get a leg up where they can.
And I think that's a really great point too, because a lot of times what people will say, one thing that people say about good TV shows is that a good show doesn't need to spell something out for you. They can show you instead of telling you, and you'll understand, right? So like you said, Valar Dohaeris was not said in this episode, but they showed us all these examples of people serving, and that just, is just an example of how good this show is in terms of their writing and what they're able to portray without being too on the nose about it.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Because it didn't really dawn on me any of this until probably about a half an hour before we started recording.
Nice.
Yeah, so this was like I like this. And I crossed out another top 5. I said, I don't like this anymore. That wraps up my number 4. Very short, but just a little thematic element of what the title goes to the episode.
Impressive. Very well said.
How about you?
My number
sir?
4. Thank you. My number 4 is Davos. And Salador.
I love him.
Yeah, me too. Is this our first time meeting Salador?
No.
It's not? Oh, wait, no?
No, we saw them when they met up on the shores talking about getting his fleet, the 30
with
ships
his
for Blackwater.
sword.
He said he wanted Cersei.
Right, yeah. He had the big cutlass hanging around him. Okay, yeah. He's the man. But
Mathos told him he was an idiot.
Right. So it opens up with Davos, and he sees a ship, and he's stranded on this rock, right? And I can't remember what this area is called, but it's a dangerous area outside of the Blackwater Rush, where the ships don't really go in here because, as you can see, there's all these spines of stone sticking out of the water, and it's got to be hard to recreate an area like that in real life. So they didn't really do it like on a massive scale for the show, but you could see a couple of these stone things sticking out of the water, and Davos was on one of them. And this scene from the books, I just have to say, is one of the most impactful scenes for me personally. It's just so, his experience as he's stranded out here after being washed to sea after the Battle of Blackwater Bay is just so harrowing for the number of days that he's stuck on this rock before he ends up being rescued. It's really brutal the way that it's described. It's really intense. So I really liked... Yeah, Hail Hydra. So I liked experiencing that, and then having all those memories pop into my head watching the show. And I think that Liam Cunningham did a great job expressing Davos's frenzied desperation when he's trying to hail that ship. And he's screaming and yelling, and he waves his hands, and there's no reaction, and the camera sort of zooms in his face for a second, and there's this pang of desperation and chaos on his face, horror. And right then, you hear a horn blow from the ship, and they cuts to the next scene where, there's also a cool part where he pulls out his hands and he's going to start waving, and you can see the tops of his fingers are all chopped off, and it's just brutal. So you could see that, which is pretty cool. Like they didn't fuck up in post production and forget to add that detail or something, So the guys are here. Help me over here. They row up. Who are you? I was in the battle at Blackwater. I was a captain and a knight. Aye, sir, and serving which king? And
that's always the question, right?
Yes, and this part is where you learn that Davos is the true steel. Davos is the steel. He's the real deal. He's true through and through. He puts it all on the line here, offering his life in the name of his god king, the Manus, Stannis. He had said that Stannis is my god before. Remember that scene that we were just referencing after Salador walked away and he was talking with Mathos or whatever. So he holds true, puts it on the line, says the one true king of Westeros, Stannis Baratheon, and I think at that moment, you know who Davos is. The content of his character is displayed in that moment, his dedication and his sense of honor, you could say.
Yeah.
And amazingly, the guy smiles, and he ends up on Salador's ship, and so that was cool. And I noticed as we get our first glimpse into Salador's cabin, that he has a beautiful treasure chest in there. Did you see that thing?
I did not.
Oh, man.
I must have been writing things down, and I saw the episode twice, man.
There's just so many little details like this all over the place that, you can't possibly get them all. But I was watching The Curse of Oak Island last night, which is about, potential treasure, ancient religious artifacts, Shakespeare manuscripts buried on this island in Canada. and they were showing, and
I love the end in Canada.
I know, that's so weird. But
it's right behind a Tony Hortons.
Yeah, right, Tim Hortons. Yeah, spread over by Timmy's.
Oh, Tim Hortons. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right next to Timmy's, and it's really, really weird. Actually, there's something to it. I mean, even U.S. presidents, FDR, sunk like millions of dollars into this, trying to dig down into this pit where they've found all this anomalous stuff. They actually recently discovered a Phoenician cross over there, and that's from like, they were around like 1200 BC. So it may have been Phoenician or Templars, using Phoenician symbolism, but that's besides the point.
Treasure.
Yeah, so there's this cool they showed some treasure chests and stuff, but like one from the island. But this guy Salladhor has this beautiful chest. It's got like plated metal sides that are all riveted, and it's got like sort of a like a boxy shaped top to it, which is really cool. So they're talking in there, and everybody thinks that Davos is dead, much like Mark Twain. Rumors of his demise have been greatly exaggerated. Same with Tyrion last year, which is hilarious. So he tells Salladhor sadly that he witnessed Mathos taken by the wildfire, which is brutal. But hey, it's better to at least have... I mean, it sucks that he saw it, but at least he knows what happened,
Yeah, can you imagine not knowing and like having that in the back of your head forever?
Right. Yeah, so as horrible as that sight seared in your brain is, like, at least he knows.
You know what? I love Liam Cunningham. Oh my gosh, I just love him.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite actors on the show.
Me
because
too.
You could totally feel what he was saying.
Yeah.
He's like, I saw him get caught up. I saw the moment it happened. I mean, it was just, you could see like the hurt wince across his face.
Has he won any awards for this show?
No, he's
like overlooked,
Yeah, underappreciated, overlooked.
Very much so. He's very talented. I don't think anybody's better than him on this show.
Oh no, not. I think he's up there with Dinklage for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, and he's next level. Yeah, I would agree. They're both like phenomenal. So he says, "No, the wildfire took him. I saw it." So Salladhor says, he's so sorry, my friend, and they talk about, they sort of, Davos wants him to bring him to Stannis. Salladhor doesn't want to because there's nothing for him there. He thinks that it's over. He says Stannis is a broken man, which I had forgot was a concept that hadn't been applied to Stannis. We've seen it applied to so many other characters in this show. Mm-hmm. We mentioned even the episode The Broken Man featuring the Hound earlier in season 6, episode 6, I think. So Stannis, in his case, he's only a broken man temporarily. He mends pretty quickly, it turns out. And once he figures out his next path. Salladhor's bummed that he was promised 30, he was promised riches and glory, and he delivered the 30 ships but didn't get the riches. And
hey man, rules of a pirate.
Yeah. So
you gotta see the treasure before you agree to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so he tells him that Stannis has just been locked up by himself, not seeing his generals or anybody, and only listening to Melisandre, who's telling him to burn people alive. And Davos is like, what? Like, what the fuck? And so they're talking about how Stannis is like, kind of under Melisandre's spell, and she's spoken out against all those who she calls servants of darkness and everything. So he's like, you're a smuggler, I'm a pirate, we're kind of servants of darkness, we probably shouldn't go near her because she wants to kill like all people kind of like us, right? So he's like, listen, like, you drank with me at my wedding, And it's like, you drank with me at 4 of my weddings. It's hilarious. And he begs him not to go, and he wants to try to kill her himself, basically, which we do see him try to do in this episode, which is great.
Well, she provoked it.
Absolutely, she knew he was going to try, so yeah, she just triggered it essentially.
Well, she said fire is the purest form of death.
Yep, just like I told you, son.
Yeah. Oh, I would go after her too.
And he's like, pulled his dagger out.
But what's great is that, Stannis didn't see what she said. He just thinks that Davos is crazy. So she provoked him to act out like that so that Stannis would remove Davos from the situation.
That's fucking crazy. I didn't even really think about it like that. I didn't
She's
realize
a crazy bitch.
You know what that reminds me of? You remember Dexter?
Yes.
There's that scene in season 1, right? Where Dokes is onto Dexter and he thinks that Dexter is something. You give me the fucking creeps, Dexter. You fucking weirdo.
I love Dokes. Dokes. I love
You're like a
Dokes.
fucking lizard on ice. You don't even walk, you glide. Right? So
surprise, motherfucker.
He corners Dexter in his office, and he's kind of giving him the rundown. He's talking to him, threatening him, and Dexter boom gives him a quick headbutt, and then walks out really quickly into the public area of the police station, nothing happened. Just casually starts to talk to somebody as if he's just as if nothing's happening, and then Dokes comes out and just attacks him right in front of everybody. So it's the same thing, right? He triggers him without nobody noticing.
Great connection.
Yeah,
it's a great off the cuff, totally random connection.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I've seen Dexter a million times, so
I love Dexter.
It just automatically triggered that memory, I guess. Yeah, it's a good show. Yeah, really good. So they have this funny talk about all their weddings, all their different wedding days and everything like that. And he's like, you drank at 4 of my wedding days, but I don't ask you for favors. It's oh, that's fucked up, man. Come on. Sometimes friends ask each other for favors.
Right.
Don't
not pirates.
Just because you'd never asked for a favor before doesn't mean that I'm not expecting you will someday, or that it would be out of line for you to ask for a favor someday. Right? So he then has a chilling line, which sort of stops Davos in his tracks, where he says, he basically tells Davos she'll kill you if you try to kill her, and he's like, please, I have to stop her. Just please do this for me. And he's like, when you're dead, I will gather your bones in a little sack and let your widow wear them around her neck. I love his accent. What kind of accent is that? You think it's Caribbean or some sort of African accent? Or?
Some sort of Caribbean accent. I think that
maybe Haitian.
That's probably right. Yeah, it's kind of like that. I don't know. It's Salador's accent.
I love it.
Pirate. It's pirate accent.
The way he said burn was Ben.
Yeah.
Like an E sort of. I don't know. I liked it a lot. So that's cool. I love accents. Just a little aside. So that pretty much sums up my number 4, is just that cool, interaction between the two of them and just the whole Davos stuff. I really like the scene on the rock. Basically, it gives me those book memories, which I have nostalgia for. So definitely read the books. Hopefully we don't annoy people saying that so much.
Well, I don't care. I mean, I do.
We're only going to do that, read the books. We're doing that during the long night, between the seasons, because you have time to.
Yes, you have lots and lots of time.
Yeah, when we're back on a normal schedule, or even when it's in closing towards the show being back on and there's not enough time for you to read the books.
Time.
Yeah, so we won't be hounding you and bothering you about it then.
Once we get past the books.
Yeah. So
then we'll all be on the same we'll be all on the same plane.
Exactly. So what's your number 3, Lady K?
My number 3, I have to go back to that page. Yeah, okay. Let's do... I have 3 very good ones that I'm excited to talk about, so I'm just going to choose one at random.
Right.
Jon Snow meets Tormund and Mance.
Yay. Yeah, this is a really fun scene.
So, first of all, Tormund Giantsbane has now entered our realm, and I'm just so happy to see him. I'm happy that the first shot of him is him just munching on a chicken the way that he was munching on that meat as he was staring at Brienne,
Yeah.
Seems to be the way he likes to eat his food.
And I just have to mention that he looks how Tormund looks, right? The big red-headed guy. He looks just like the co-founder of Walker Stalker Convention. James Fraser. Yeah, he looks just like James. Hilarious.
Just as big?
James is a little bit shorter, I think. Mm-hmm. But so similar. It's hilarious.
I was just, I love it that Tormund is now. I think Tormund and John's friendship is just wonderful. I love
me
where
too.
it started. I love where it goes.
That's true. Considering where it goes, it's funny where it starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hadn't really thought too much about that.
John walks in and with Ygritte and the Lord of Bones, and nobody wants anything to do with him until they found out that he killed Corn Halfhand.
Right.
And then Tormund turns around and he starts kind of chiding him a bit. And then John is wonderful. He just falls to his knees.
Just suddenly.
And he's like, Your Grace.
And everybody starts laughing.
Even if you haven't seen it before, this is not a good idea.
Right.
Everybody starts laughing at him. You're immediately, you feel bad for poor Jon Snow. And then Mance Rayder makes himself known, comes out of the shadows, very much like another character is going to do later on this season, actually, with Ramsay.
Oh.
And how he makes himself known to Theon.
Grimy. Right.
So,
you mean...
anyways.
All right, yeah, he's not Reek yet.
No, not yet. So, let me just go real quick to my notes.
I love my Reek.
So, before we even get to the tent, though, we have, John sees a giant for the first time. He's walking the Wildling camp. He's quickly realizing just how out of his depth he probably is at this moment. I think the one thing that he has on his side, other than the fact that he did kill Corn Halfhand, is that he's had a lot of time to just kind of, I think about what he's going to say, how he's going to play it. He knew that he was going to go to the Wildling camp even before he killed Corn Halfhand. Now, he killed Corn Halfhand, and all of a sudden they were at the Wildling village, so I'm sure he had to kind of figure out what he was going to do when he talked to Mance. I mean, he knew if he didn't say the right things, he was going to die. Like, that was just going to be the end of Jon Snow. That was
so intense, man. The quickness with which he comes up with his explanations there. And it was not having any time really to prep. Like, he doesn't know what Mance is going to ask him. I mean, I guess he had to come up with a basic cover story, but...
I mean, the one thing that he really had on his side was that that Mance Rayder used to be a man of the Night's Watch. He used to be a brother. He could rely on that knowledge that they've both said those words before. They're both behind the wall. Like, that there has to be some level of a kinship there, even if it's hanging by a thread. That's the one thing that they have in common right now.
Right.
And the fact that Jon Snow is the son of Ned Stark at this point in the story.
So you're Ned Stark's bastard.
That carries a lot of weight, even beyond the wall. He's learned that a couple of times, but now he's really learning that carries a lot of weight. Ned Stark's name has traveled all this way. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
I, Ned Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, sentence you to die.
Blah. Chop. So... what I love is that we have this really great line that Jon says, and he says, I want to fight for the side that fights for the living. And
yeah, that was really good.
What's wonderful is that just like he said a couple episodes ago about, he goes, those men died for me, and Corn Halfhand says, make sure that it was for something, right? Mm-hmm. So now he knows that there's these White Walkers out there. He's killed a white. He knows that there's this force that's out there, right? And he's been told by by Jorah Mormont that that the Wildlings are getting together, that there's going to be some sort of a fight or whatever. I can't think of it right now because my brain's all jumbled up. But the commander basically told Jon the entire speech that Jon says for all of season 7.
Right, yeah.
Like, he gives the very first speech. So Jon now has this line where he says, I want to fight for the side that fights for the living. And I think that that's kind of what his mantra was from that moment on.
Boom. Yeah. He says, the realms of men, like that includes you guys, so.
Yeah.
Like,
and
welcome.
I think that, Mance took that, he ran with
Literally.
it, and I like it because I feel like it gave Jon kind of his purpose, his mission statement almost of what he was doing and what he was going to do from that point on.
It was like it solidified in this moment for him. Like this is kind of the moment where it becomes like a cohesive idea. Like I want to fight for the living, Like this is the first time
he could always go back to that.
Yeah, and it's really really cool moment. And we've been talking about people being in precarious positions and saying bold things, like with Arya saying anyone can be killed to Tywin, and
that's kind of her mission statement, right?
Right. Yeah, basically.
Such as it is.
That's hilarious. Funny parallel. And and then, Sansa speaking out of line to Joffrey and stuff too, like maybe Robb will kill you instead, stuff like that. So here we have Jon, who's, if I'm a traitor, then you are too, saying the same type of
ballsy
stuff to Mance, like ballsy tactic, saying that, but it worked, and I think that as we learn, they sort of develop a respect, like a real respect for each other.
All the way to the end, too. And that's kind of like the beginning of their respect and their relationship for each other as well.
Right. And even though, like, Jon kills Mance, like, Tormund says, it was mercy.
It was a kindness. Yeah, it was a kindness. It wasn't... He didn't kill him.
Jon's arrow was mercy.
When Jon says that at Hardhome, he's like, I killed Mance Rayder. You're like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, the way he phrased it. It's like he's saying the right thing, but he's not saying it right.
You could just see Tormund looking at him
How
like,
did he die?
I would drive your face into the ground.
Yeah. Exactly. That's so funny. He's like,
let me clean up your word mess.
Like, he's like, Mance is dead, and they're like, how did he die? And he's like, I killed him. And then you just like facepalm, like, no,
and
everybody's mad.
Totally.
Tormund has to defend him because he just doesn't articulate it right,
Tormund's just like, look at him, like, do you
like,
know how many times he would have died if it wasn't for me, motherfucker?
Yeah, he's
like, shut your damn mouth.
Yeah, and he's like, he didn't really kill him, guys. He kind of saved him by killing him, more putting him out of his misery type thing. That's pretty funny. But I think that Mance, has a respect for Jon because he appreciates that boldness, and he appreciates that fire. He appreciates that he's, the bastard of Stark who's, now stepped out of the protection that he could have just grown up with, and he's out beyond the wall by himself, doing this himself, taking on this, the world himself. And kind of like, you could look at Mance as sort of like a bastard of the Night's Watch, sort of, an outcast, an whose ideology didn't mesh.
I bet you he had probably the same kind of ideals as Jon, right?
Right. So they sort of connect, and I think he sees himself in Jon. To like you said, they sort of the same ideology. They both are up beyond the wall, like north of the wall, wanting to fight for the side of the living. They sort of really connect, and he sort of said everything perfectly that he needed to.
Yeah. I wonder if Mance Rayder, who, he seems to be the most reasonable of really a lot of, about 85% of the characters in the entire story. But I just wonder, if he did see right through Jon and maybe thought to himself, like, I'm going to take this guy under my wing. I'm going to show him what I'm doing, and maybe this is the guy that's going to link the two together. And this is what's going to get us through.
I think you're probably right. I would assume that he is able to tell that, that Jon isn't like completely honest, but I think that he's also able to tell that Jon's heart is in the right place, that he does want to fight for the living, that part is true, And
he has a lot of honor. He was raised by Ned Stark.
Right. Like I think he's able to sense that this is like, although he has to lie about some stuff here, that like he's true at his core. He does want to fight for the living, that he was upset, when he learned that Lord Commander knew, that I think that he does sense the core of truth in Jon's speech. Like he's lying, but he's also telling the truth, like a deep truth,
Yeah.
So I think that that's more important to Mance And I think that's like the deeper core mission is what he senses and is willing to take a chance on.
Yeah, good judge of character.
Yeah, it ends up working out for the majority of the Wildlings, not for Mance himself.
Not for Mance, no.
Yeah. Read the books.
Yeah, right? That's actually true. Read the books. Anyway, so that was my number 3. What was your number 3?
Awesome. My number 3 was kind of short and sweet. It's just the growing dragons, which was really exciting. We get this awesome shot where, well, I don't remember what scene it transitioned from, but we get splash, splash, and like a dragon like coming out of the water or something, and these beautiful shots of the dragons flying around and flinging fish up into the air and roasting them, and it's just so beautifully done, and the graphics and the cinematography and like the shots from over the backs of Drogon as he's flying along. It's just amazing, and I'm like, this is the future, people. Like, this is like the next level of television, is where we're at now with Game of Thrones. And if this is
remember?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you remember how cool it was just seeing them at that size?
Yeah.
Like for the first time, you're like, wow, yeah, they're starting to look like dragons. I mean, now, holy shit, man.
Yeah, I think that's important to mention too, is that like the nostalgia of it is like, you got to see the dragons like growing and flying and doing all this stuff, which is so cool. And while we're mentioning that, we should also mention that we got to see a giant this episode too, for the first time, which is like the same type of thing where it's like that was another moment for this show that sort of like elevated it to another level of like epicness. Like like when have we ever seen that before, and on TV especially. So, and to have it look good and that realistic.
This episode actually won an Emmy for outstanding visual effects.
Ooh, this episode, it makes sense. There you go. Like I was saying, this is the future, and in that Emmy for this year, they agreed. This is the next level of TV special effects, right? So there you go. And I thought it was hilarious too, that scene with the giant, and he's walking along, and Jon is just like, "Whoa, look at this!" And it grits.
What did it remind you of?
It reminded me of Smallville, where where he walks over and he pulls out these wooden stakes and starts pounding them down to the ground with his fists. And that's what Clark Kent did on Smallville when he's growing up on the farm in Smallville. He's like building picket fences by like running around and whacking them into the ground with his fists like that.
Oh my gosh, I totally remember that. And I've only seen like 2 or 3 episodes of Smallville.
It's a great show. I love that show. Supergirl also is amazing.
I thought of it made me think of when Jon saw the dragons for the first time.
Oh,
same
that's a great
dumb
call.
look on his face.
And then when Tyrion saw the dragon fly overhead in Valyria, same type of thing. He's like, "What?" Jorah already knew, but that was the first time Tyrion saw a dragon, and he had sort of that like awestruck gaze as well, which was really cool.
Right.
And so she's telling what she's saying to Jon about the giant. There, do you remember?
Have you never seen it? Is this your first time seeing a giant?
Yeah.
And then she says something like, "Well,
they're shy.
They're shy. Don't stare at them too long."
But when they stop being shy, they get angry. And when they're angry, I've seen them pound a man straight into the ground like a hammer on a nail.
With a nail.
And there's a moment where Jon and the giant make a brief eye contact, and it kind of like shakes Jon a bit, and he can't hold the eye contact.
I don't want to be a nail.
What would you do? Would you like hold the eye contact, or would you be too scared?
Fuck, man, I wouldn't even look in his direction. I'd be like, yeah, that's a giant. He'll probably kill me.
I don't know. I might have to wave. I don't know if I'd be able to resist. It'd be so cool.
Wave? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You have a death wish then. If I heard that they didn't like
project,
people.
She didn't. I think she was messing with him. He's with a bunch of people, right? You can project
but he's a crow.
That. He's a crow. Come at me, crow, says the giant. I think you could project an air of friendliness that the giant could, comprehend.
Snow.
Like Percy Fawcett engaging with indigenous tribes in the jungles in the 1920s. He did end up missing, though, so maybe not the best example. But he was the best at it while he lasted. Like, he would go into missions and like jungle explorations with groups of like 100 people, and he would come out the only person alive after all of them would be like killed by snakes and bugs stinging them and like lost in the swamp, and indigenous tribes would kill like all the other explorers. But Percy Fawcett had this way of sort of like treating with them really diplomatically, which nobody else managed to do. They were terrified of the white man, right? So he's searching for this lost city called the City of Z, and they made a movie about it recently. Brad Pitt was originally supposed to play Percy Fawcett, but they ended up recasting it. But he's following the path, trying to find this lost city, and he meets this group of indigenous tribes, and this guy, he's a writer for the New Yorker, David Grann. He wrote a book about it, and where he retraced Percy Fawcett's steps himself, and interviewed people in these indigenous tribes in the jungle, and who had stories passed down in their oral traditions about this guy. And so he follows him until this one tribe, and they tell David Grann that, we warned him, Percy Fawcett, like we told him, don't go that way, because these guys over there, this tribe, they were taken captive by the white man who tried to introduce them into society and civilize them, and it did not work out well, and they killed a bunch of people and fled and escaped back into the jungle, and they don't take kindly to white men. Like, they'll kill you, don't do it. And he's like, they're all friendly with me, I talk to them all and it works out every time, right? So he goes, and they send a scout to follow him, and they see the smoke from his fire off in the distance every day for 3 days, and then it just stops, and he never returned.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really cool story. There's a book about it called The Lost City of Z by David Grann. I can't recommend it highly enough.
Yeah, I've heard of that book.
Really fascinating. And while we're talking about that, Lost Cities in the Jungle, did you see that thing I posted recently where they, using LiDAR, which is a type of laser system that they shoot lasers down from planes when they're flying overhead?
They discovered... I read the article. I found it before you told me about it too.
Nice. Yeah, they found 60,000 new structures in the Mayan jungle in Guatemala. 60,000 pyramids, tombs, palaces, platforms where houses were erected, or Mayan shack type houses. They said. They speculate, I should say, because the remains from on top of the platforms are gone. But yeah, so this type of stuff, like the Lost City of Z, it could exist. It's probably out there. Fly a plane over that territory now, and you'll find the Lost City, and we can go there. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember even what we were talking about at this point.
Dragons.
Dragons. Yeah, the dragons are cool.
Dragons are cool?
Yeah, they're cool, man. That's my number 3.
Okay. I like it. Dragons are cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Yeah, it was good to see those dragons. Well, I'll stay in the same vein as dragons, and I'll do my number 2 for there was some foreshadowing with Daenerys and Jorah. It's hard for me to say Dany so much because my daughter's name is Dany, and so...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think Dany is, aside from "and," it's one of the most commonly used books or words in the A Song of Ice and Fire book series. He says it 1,600 times or something throughout the books.
Yeah, that makes sense. So anyway, here we are. We're going to Astapor. They finally got the ship. They've got the Dothraki on the ship. They've just Daenerys even says what a big deal this is that the Dothraki have. They're the first Dothraki to be on a ship, to face the poison water, to go somewhere else. This is, she knows how huge this moment is.
Yeah, that shows you how much they believe in her.
Absolutely. Also, before I go on, so I forgot to go back to the last episode and count, but I think she has an extra braid now in her hair, an extra row of braids.
Oh, right, because they get more and more complex as she continues to win battles and
stuff. As she conquers and wins more, right. It's like the bells.
Yeah, that's great. I love how she sort of modified that Dothraki tradition and turned it into her own sort of thing.
Yes, I do too. Very much. And now she's got, a mess of braids because she's badass.
Right. And it's like Jon Snow incorporating different influences from his various role models throughout his whole process. Dany seems to be doing the same thing, which is cool.
Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree. But so Jorah tells Daenerys, the Dothraki, they follow strength above all. You'll have a true Khalasar when you prove yourself strong and not before.
Right.
And
Continuing
she gets that Khalasar when she burns down Vice Dothrak.
Vice. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Right.
So, that's when she showed her true strength. That's when she got, her Khalasar. I mean, she had the Unsullied and the Second Sons and her dragons before that. But once she got that Dothraki army, it was over. She had what she needed,
Definitely.
And that was kind of a thorn in her side too, because that should have been hers from the start.
Right.
And they abandoned her and they left her. And I think that was probably the most important piece for her in the entire process. It probably didn't even feel complete until she finally had them, because she had been called Khaleesi before she was called queen.
And her husband was the call of calls.
And, Drogo was so important for her. Drogo was her husband.
Her son and stars.
Right, exactly. I mean, her dragon is named Drogon, for Pete's sake, right?
Right.
So I just love that little line right there, because it's almost a throwaway line, because we can apply it to her going to go get the Unsullied, by saying, when you prove yourself strong. Well, you can make an argument that in a couple of episodes, when she turns her dragons on the slavers, that she's proving herself strong. But
right.
I think that if she wants a Khalasar, she needs to prove herself strong to the calls, to the Dothraki.
To the Dothraki, and particularly to like you're saying, to the people that are high up.
Right. And everybody saw what happened
when
she burned it down.
When
Everyone
she became
saw.
the unburnt squared.
Right. Squared. Yes. She became the unburnt to the 10th degree, right?
Yeah.
When she came out glowing like fire, but her hair blowing in the wind. Yeah, she's amazing.
I love her.
So anyways, I like that tiny bit of foreshadowing that, as if you've seen the whole series, you can tell where she's going to go. What's going to happen.
She's going to show him how powerful she is. Yeah.
And it's very, very cool. So like you said, you go back to the one ship with the, small dragons and the small Khalasar that she has of these blood riders, with, her one guy that sticks by her side. I mean, she doesn't even have Barristan yet, right?
Think about this. When she started out, she owned nothing.
Nothing.
When she owned a horse and 3 dragon eggs and some books. Gifts from her wedding, right? Next, after Khal Drogo died, she owned 3 dragons and a mini Khalasar, and she just keeps building it. But she started out with nothing, and then it had a horse and some books.
Well, then
and 3
she
eggs.
lost most of her mini Khalasar to the Red Waste.
Yeah, she lost a lot.
She lost a couple of her blood riders too.
Even blood riders. Terribly.
And she lost her horse.
Yeah. Yup. Silver.
Yes. I would say more, but I can't. So anyways, that was just like a little bit of foreshadowing that I thought was top 5 worthy.
Nice. Yeah, that was fun.
What was your number 2?
My number 2 was the one, the only Krasny's Monastus. The slaver guy, the guy who has all the
Is that
Unsullied.
His name?
Yeah, Krasny's Monastus.
Oh my gosh, I missed that.
I fucking love that guy. I mean, he's despicable and I hate him, but he's so fucking funny the way he's talking shit about Daenerys right in front of her, and has no idea that she understands everything that he's saying the whole time.
That she's hearing everything.
And he's calling her a whore and a dog and like a coward and all of this horrible stuff. Oh my god, it's so funny. And she's just, and like, it starts off the first time he says something really horrible. Missandei is like, you really want me to say that? And he's like, no, idiot.
It's like, no, you dumbass.
And so she starts being like super diplomatic with him. And like some of the quotes are just amazing. The Unsullied are really impressive too. He's going on and describing what they do, right? And he's saying like how he's had them standing there for a day and night with no food or no water. They'll stand till they drop, such is their obedience. And she's kind of like, oh shit. And he says they begin their training at 5, and every day from dusk till dawn they train till they've mastered the short sword, the shield, the 3 spears. Only one boy in 4 survives, which in itself is super fucked up.
Yeah.
Their loyalty and discipline are absolute, which he goes on to show. They feared nothing. And she says even the bravest men fear death. And Missandei translates, my master says the Unsullied are not men. Death means nothing to them. And he says some horrible shit, and she changes what he says and says, he begs you to attend this carefully. Tell this dumb slut to pay attention. He begs her to attend this carefully. Stuff like that. He cuts off the nipple.
That was such a brutal moment.
Yeah. He tells the whole story about how they kill a little boy in front of their moms, and it's
newborns.
Newborns.
8,000 dead newborn babies.
Yeah, she has that moment. 8,000 dead babies. Yeah.
It's hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah. Wow. It's super, super horrible. And it's even worse, like paying him a silver coin. It reminds me of an incident from the books where somebody is raped repeatedly by all of the members of the Lannister Guard. And a certain individual is forced to do it last, and every one of them gives the woman a silver stag, except for the last person, who is forced to give her a golden stag because he's worth more than all the guards.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to give it away, but there's that horrible but beautiful way of describing it where by the end, like the stags were just pouring out of her hands, like she couldn't even like hold all the silver stags, which is fucked up. But Daenerys is like, so you kill a baby and then pay their mother for their pain? And he's like, no, tell her we don't pay the mothers, we pay the baby's owner. And kind of like smugly grins at her, and like, oh my god, he's so horrible.
He's so proud of himself for that too.
So proud of himself. And
gross.
Yeah, it's slimy. Yeah, it's greasy, as they would say in Trailer Park Boys. And so it's just disgusting, and it's all the better on the rewatch because we know how his eyeballs are going to melt in next episode.
I just can't even wait for that.
In the most epic moment of like the entire series, Dracarys.
I can't wait.
Yeah, love that moment. So yeah, that's gonna be fun to cover. But yeah, that's it. He tells that bitch she has till tomorrow. And for some reason, I downloaded the script, so I have the entire script, but it didn't come through with his translations. It only gave Missandei's responses. So unfortunately, I don't have his exact quotes here, but he continues to say some horrible shit. Yeah. No, I wish. I don't even have the Valyrian, unfortunately.
That would be amazing if you did.
Yeah. So yeah, I just thought this was a really great scene. It's really funny. Missandei is just incredibly, like, her diplomacy is off the charts. We learn later that she speaks like 17 languages, which is just incredible anyway, but the speed at which...
She's like a beautiful human C-3PO.
Yeah, she is. She's just like C-3PO. He is a droid programmed for diplomacy, right? So it's the same fucking thing. He's a protocol droid. Exactly. That's a brilliant connection. Would that make the half-man R2-D2? for that would be because they're
Grey Worm.
No, well, it would be 3PO and Tyrion, right? R2 and Missandei. For Daenerys, that would be her Luke, I guess, right?
Yeah,
she would be Luke in that situation.
Would be Luke.
That's hilarious. I love that comparison. Actually, it's really funny. The odds of successfully navigating a Greyjoy fleet are approximately...
Hey, Luke did get C-3PO out of slavery with...
Oh, yeah.
with the sand people.
That's true, and R2D2, who she's
or the Jawas. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Jawas. And
sorry, Star Wars people. Sorry, husband. My husband will just. I can see him banging his head against a door right now. Kristen, it's not the sand people.
What's that thing with Moses in the desert? And God told Moses, the sand people travel in packs, but trace their steps, stepping each other's footsteps to hide their numbers. I don't know, or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's smart.
So that was really funny. But yeah, Missandei is just amazing, man. Like, she's beautiful, she's really smart, she knows all these languages, she's incredible at diplomacy. Like, she's turning these horrible things into, like, very diplomatic and friendly exchanges. Because she just has like an ear for this type, like an intuition for this type of, dialogue, which is really cool. So I think it's a great introduction for this character, Missandei, and it right off the bat, hearing his words and her words, it becomes immediately understandable why Daenerys wants to free her and offer her to be under Daenerys' protection. Because she's just like astounding. Like, anybody would want Missandei.
Yeah, what a great advisor. Tool.
Yeah. To not to dehumanize her.
I didn't mean it that way, but
as a robot, 3PO.
3POs. Oh, I see. Haha. No.
And a great advisor.
No, she's just a really, really great resource that was probably just not used properly or with any type of respect.
Her potential is being so squandered to inhuman degree. Like the cruelty, the level of cruelty of squandering that potential in that scenario is just like so wrong. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my number 2. Is just that whole scene. I loved Missandei. I loved Krasny's Monastis, who I just think is one of the funniest characters on this show because I have a sick sense of humor. And and I'll own that.
That's all right. Yeah, you own it.
I will. Let's take a second to talk about Audible.
For you, the listeners of Game of Microphones, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So we've been talking about this a lot. If you guys are, as podcast listeners, we know that you probably like to listen to, pretty much
audio form,
anything of what you can find. And so, Audible is a really good platform to kind of read your books, quote unquote, for people that are always, working, or they're in the car, or they're doing laundry, or basically run. Even if you're a big runner, I'm a big runner. So I like to kind of change it up from time to time. I listen to podcasts, I listen to books, I listen to music, depending on how far I'm running. I just finished Ready Player One. It is by far one of the best books I've read in a really long time. It was fantastic. I could not recommend it more. So what we're offering is, if you'd like to help support us, you can just go to www.audibletrial.com/GOM for Game of Microphones, and you can get a free 30-day trial. That way, it helps support us as a podcast. It helps you get one free book when you sign up for your free trial. If you decide to keep it, for every month that you pay for it, you get 1 credit, and that credit will get you 1 book. And
you get a free book just for signing up, no matter what.
Right, you get a free book just for signing up,
and you get to support us without having to spend anything yourself, which is really cool.
Right, it's a free way to help us. It's a free way to get a book, and it's a free way to check out a really cool new way of getting your book learning in.
Yeah, totally.
So check it out. And if you want Duncan to send you a book, you can always email him your email address, and as long as you haven't had a book sent to you before, is that what it is?
Yeah, as long as we haven't sent you a book before, we can send you a free audiobook from Audible, at least from my collection of audiobooks from Audible that I have, which includes all of the Game of Thrones
Swords
books. Yeah, Storm of Swords. perfect example.
Which is starting right now with our discussion of season 3 of Game of Thrones. So check it out.
Yeah, get it, listen, and then you'll have like an in on the podcast, so you'll understand things from like an even deeper level than you would from just having watched the TV show, because you'll get all this extra information, and then little details on the show will mean even more to you and have like deeper significance. It's really cool.
And then you can say, read the book, say Hydra.
Yeah, exactly.
So download your free audiobook today. Go to audibletrial.com/GOM. Again, that's audibletrial.com/GOM for your free audiobook.
Awesome.
Dee, 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 dee.
So what's your number one?
My number one is the awkward royal dinner.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty awkward, huh?
It's one of my favorite scenes because we get this whole episode, we get a fantastic introduction to who Margaery Tyrell is.
We really do.
We've seen her play, the queen a couple of times with Renly, and we've seen her talk to Baelish, I want to be the queen, but we don't really get an idea of who she is, I think, in season 2. But in this season opener, you really get an idea of Margaery. Margaery is loved. She likes, she loves the people. She loves the children. She wants to help them. She has an idea of who she is, who she wants to be, where she's going, and how to get there.
It was like season 2, we got to see Marjorie's mission, and season 3, we're starting to get to see her tactics.
Yeah, and what's great is how off balance she throws
Joffrey.
Cersei.
Oh,
Cersei.
And Cersei, yeah.
Well, Joffrey's completely bewitched by her.
And bewildered.
Yeah, he
stops in Flea Bottom and he's like, what is going on here? What is the meaning of this?
But he sees, but what I love about Joffrey in this moment is that I can see that if he was raised with kindness, he could have had a different life.
Right. Yeah, you do get to see hints of that. It's really sad.
You saw this boy king looking at this woman who is loved by the people just for stepping outside the carriage, something he hasn't felt comfortable doing ever because of the situation of the sins of his parents, right?
Right.
And I think he really wants that. He wants to learn how to do that. I think that his one mission in life is to be liked and to be loved. And I don't think that he knows how to go about doing that. I don't think anybody's ever taught him that.
Sorry, that's not funny.
And then, you see this, you sit down to this weird dinner with Loras and Margaery and Cersei and...
Oh, that's a lovely dress.
Joffrey.
It must be
Look
cold.
At
you must be
the
freezing.
metal work. I love it when she says the metal work. And Cersei's like, well, you need armor if you're going to survive in this town, bitch.
We've been talking about her armor, too. It's great that...
I love her armor.
Yeah, she's consistently or frequently showing up with like armored... what look like sort of like armored corsets type of thing.
Yes.
So It's really cool to continue to see that. I always tend to like that.
But you have two women that are playing the same game, but they're playing it so differently that they're just glaring opposites when they're put up next to each other. And it just makes for this comedy of errors that I love, Joffrey is very embarrassed by Cersei, who's trying to undermine Margaery with little, cuts and comments. And then Cersei plays a really dangerous game by trying to talk about being attacked, Joffrey being attacked in that same alleyway or something like that.
Right.
He's like, my mother has a flair of the dramatic. And it's like, dude, I remember when you said kill them all, okay? Let's not pretend that nobody saw that.
Right, he says that we were never really in danger of dying. It's so funny. The king, we had a full complement of guards that didn't stop them. The king barely escaped with his life. My mother's always had a penchant for drama. Facts become less and less important to her as she grows older.
Oh, gosh, I know. And you see Margaery and Loras, and I swear to you, they looked at each other, and with their eyes, they said, well, this is going to be easier than we thought.
Yeah, he's already, co-opted against her to some degree, it seems.
Yeah, she's like, gosh, it took a flash of my cleavage and a couple kind words, and I've got this guy eating out of the palm of my hand.
Yeah. I'd eat out of anywhere.
Yes, I know. Everybody loves Marjorie. Everybody loves Natalie Dormer. She's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so funny too. We should mention just while we're talking about how beautiful she is and what she looks like. Her grandmother, the Queen of Thorns, Diana Rigg. Have you ever seen a picture of her when she was younger?
Yes.
They look like identical. I saw Diana Rigg on the show, and it was the first time I'd ever seen her, and I was like, wow. I was like, I bet that when she was younger, she looked a lot like Marjorie. I could just tell by like her, her bone structure and stuff. And so I Googled it, and there were some side-by-side pictures, and I was like, wow, they look identical. Like, not identical,
you should throw that up
really
on our
close.
page.
Oh, yeah, it's a great idea. I'll do that for sure.
So yeah, I think that we get a really good setup of just kind of the push and pull that we're going to see between these two families, and especially these two women, as there is going to be an obvious power struggle over who the queen really is.
A younger and more beautiful
queen. And even
queen.
after Joffrey's death, when Marjorie actually does become the queen of a consummated marriage, that's going to definitely be something as well. So I love seeing the beginnings of these two families being shoved together, knowing that Tywin's about to put Cersei and Loras together.
Oh my God, yeah, I always forget about that. It's ridiculous.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, Cersei is so hilarious with that whole thing. We'll give him the time of day.
Yeah, I know. So anyways, that's my number one, is just the setup for these two families. And
nice. Yeah. That plays out in hilarious fashion. So my number one is our man, Double B, the bold, Barry.
Oh, Barris, tell me. Well, when you said the man, I was like, Stannis? And then he said Double B, and I was like, oh, I'm lost, I think.
Double B, Barristan the Bold. BTB.
I got it. Nope, I got it now. You threw me off with the man.
Oh, man, it was so exciting to see Barristan and his whole, like, speech at the end, and, like, the notion of what he's doing was so touching to both Daenerys and the viewer, I think. It's like a really heartfelt moment that I just found really great. So,
and he looked like a Jedi.
Yeah, even better too. It's so cool. So Daenerys is walking along with another really cool guy, Jorah, and they're talking about the Unsullied and how they're a means to an end, and that's what Jorah is saying. And she's hesitant about owning them, and she's like, well, she feels like it's a bad line to cross, like buying a slave army is kind of a fucked up thing to do, supporting a slave industry, owning slaves is fucked, right? And he tells her, well, she says, once I own them, these men, and he says, they're not men, not anymore. Once I own an army of slaves, she then says, what will I be? She doesn't want to be that person, right? So I think that she's sort of starting to conceptually try to figure out a way that she can get, the best of both worlds, not be a slave owner and still get this army, right? So she's formulating a plot on how to free these people here. That idea hasn't hit her yet, but she's feeling conflict. She knows that this path isn't right, and she knows that she needs to figure out something at this point, right? So her gears are turning, and Jorah is further making instigating her to make these considerations by telling her, like, do you think these slaves will have better lives serving Krasnys and men like him, or serving you? Like, they'd be better off under you, which is true. So it makes it even more difficult decision, because it could be even worse for these people if she leaves them behind and doesn't help them, right? So she's got to figure something out. It's an important moment. And he says, you'll be fair to them. You won't mutilate them to make a point. And as he says that, a little girl is dashing around, and Dany's sort of getting distracted, like smiling playfully at this little girl. And a man we see in a black hood is lurking. You won't order them to murder babies. You'll see they're properly fed and sheltered. A great injustice has been done to them. Closing your eyes will not undo it. And at that moment, a girl rolls the ball towards Dany. She bends over and picks it up. And right at that moment, she looks like she's about to open it, and you see the dagger be pulled out from the black cloak. And the guy dashes forward and knocks it out of her hand, and he's immediately grabbed by Ser Jorah. And Dany kind of falls to the ground, and the ball drops in front of her, and it's right in front of her face. And as it starts to crack open, you see these little spindly arms start reaching out, and it's a manticore. And it unfurls its scorpion tail sort of thing and starts to jump at her. And the look on her face is really good. I think Emilia Clarke, people have criticized her for performances on the show. I think she's always done a great job.
I love her. I think she's perfect.
I think she's been perfect too. I don't have a single criticism about her performance at all. I think she's been fantastic, but particularly in this moment when the Manticore is just jumping at her, she has a look of horror in her face that is really good. I think she scrambles backwards on her hands and knees, and right at that moment, bam! That dagger comes in and stabs it right through the thorax. Is that right? I don't know. I had an insect.
Yeah, I think
terminology
that's right.
just pop into my head suddenly.
My daughter would know. She's got a thing about insects.
That's cool. Is she gonna be an entomologist?
Sure. She wants to be a zookeeper, but
oh, cool. And so this little girl flashes the creepiest little growling smile ever, and then jumps off the dock and just disappears with no splash or anything, and it's fucking wild. It's so cool. And then it's revealed as we see on the point of this dagger held by Barristan Selmy that it's Barristan the Bold, or the White Knight, King's Guard for Mad King Aerys and Robert Baratheon.
And Jorah looks shocked.
That's why I have two. Jorah is shocked. He is stunned. And wow, what an impression there. Ian Glenn, is that his name?
Glenn, yes.
He's a great actor too. You could really see he was surprised here, and
surprised and probably a little scared. The jig is up.
He knows, or he might know. Right? Yeah, exactly. So, the warlocks. I owe you my life, sir. The honor is mine, my queen. As he takes a knee, I think, or maybe he hasn't taken a knee yet.
No, maybe
you know
not.
this man? No, he hasn't taken a knee yet. I know him as one of the greatest fighters of the Seven Kingdoms has ever seen, and as the Lord Commander of Robert Baratheon's Kingsguard. King Robert is dead, we're informed, and that's when he takes a knee. I've been searching for you, Daenerys Stormborn, to ask for your forgiveness. I was sworn to protect your family. I failed them. I am Barristan Selmy, Kingsguard to your father. Allow me to join your Queensguard, and I will not fail you again. And it's just one of the coolest moments of the entire series, as this older guy, travels across the narrow sea and across continents, essentially, to track down the rightful ruler who, in his eyes, to live up to the honor that he feels he's betrayed by being in the position that he was in and following Joffrey for the brief time that he did, etc. So it's really cool just to see him heading on what he sees as a redemption arc, Also just to see such a gifted sword fighter who we saw him stand, face down the entire Kingsguard basically and say, even now I could cut through the five of you as easily as butter, so much butter, right? So we know he's talented. Yeah, I wanted to see it too, so bad. So it's just a beautiful moment in so many different ways, and Dany looks really touched by this as well. She sort of looks almost brought to tears by it, and Jorah just looks really worried.
You know what? Because you know what? She probably was really touched by it because she has convinced herself that she is fighting for something that nobody is talking about and nobody wants in Westeros.
And that nobody even knows she exists. That
right.
Nobody's sewing dragon banners in secret. Nobody holds, give toasts to her return.
She's decided that her brother was a fool, and if she believes anything her brother ever said, she will be a fool as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, there weren't really people sewing dragon banners or anything like that, but at least, one really important person fuels that loyalty or that regret.
And she's got and now she's just learned from her most trusted advisor that this guy is no joke. Like Jorah looks like he kind of wants to get down on one knee, you know?
Yeah, in front of him, yeah.
Right. He's like, Sir Barristan, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah. That was great. That's so funny too, because he does look like he's like in awe of almost like a demigod at that moment when he sees him, you know.
Right.
It's like Perseus just like walked out of the shadows or something, you know.
Yes.
It's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So that pretty much wraps up my number one. Is just Barristan Selmy, the double B, Barristan the Bold, throwing it down for House Targaryen again. Really exciting. Yeah. So I was excited to see that. What about notes? Got some notes?
Yeah, actually, just a few. We didn't really discuss Tyrion and Cersei's amazing scene. Anytime these two are together, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
They're both just such powerhouses, and together they have a really good chemistry, probably because they're best friends in real life.
Oh, right.
So,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, well, you know that they're roommates when they film. Isn't that adorable?
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. That's so funny.
I think that's the most adorable thing I've ever heard.
I can imagine them like hanging out.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Because Lena Headey is like she seems like really cute and like funny when she's not Cersei. Yeah, like she seems like really bubbly and like smiley and like kind of like
super fun rocker chick.
Like kind of like tiny. Like I don't know. It's
yeah. I agree.
It's so funny.
So I love what she says to him when she says, "I'm not afraid of you, little brother," when she's terrified of him, of what he'll do. She's been terrified of him since he was born. I mean, he came out and he was like a little monster.
Right, yeah, and she hates him.
But
it's important also, too to note the way that he is so scared when she's approaching too, because like you said earlier in this episode, he's been locked in that room the whole time. He's just been basically hiding, and they visually portrayed this sort of like hiding out mental, mind state of Tyrion by he like removes the little board from the peephole in the door.
You see him like with one eye.
Yeah, and it shows from the outside, and it's like zoomed in on his eye as it like pans around really quickly. Like it makes it's sort of like portraying like the sense of paranoia in a very visual sense by like the eyeball darting around, looking out from this tiny hole like behind a set of bars that for protection. Like it really visually illustrates that very well.
Yeah. Oh, totally. You're completely right on that one. And but what's funny is that he has so much power over her with what he knows about her, and she's there to. She's so
scared.
She's terrified, and what's funny is that she's going back, and she's like, "Oh, you're gonna tell him lies that you've made up about me and Jaime and Joffrey's parentage." I'm thinking to myself, right. "Oh my gosh, you're a crazy bitch."
Yeah, he's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's all freaked out because last time he saw a Kingsguard. Kill him. Yeah, last time he saw one of those Kingsguard, they fucking cut his face in half, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And her order. So he's like, "What the fuck? I'm all alone. Holy shit!" They're like three of them all together right outside my door. What do I do? He's terrified. And so he lets her in, and she's like, he's like, "What the fuck is she doing here?" She starts asking about why, like, he's going to go see father. And he's like, "Why the fuck do you care why I'm going to see dad?"
Because he's my dad.
Right. And he's like, she's like, "You've slandered me before," right? Which is fucking bullshit, because it wasn't even slander. She, like, literally caused this girl to lose an eye.
Well, and it's not slander this time.
Yeah, and it's not slander this time.
The irony of it all.
Yeah,
right?
Again, it's not slander. Yeah, perfect point. So I just thought that was really funny that he's sensing that, and he's like playing it off like, it wasn't one of Stannis' people that cut my face. Just go curious. And so yeah, I just thought that was funny that she's all worried about why he's there, and he's sort of figuring it out, and like that whole thing, the dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah, I love that the dynamic between the two of them anytime that they're together, and I love how just obtuse Tyrion seems to be every time he's around her, because he holds so much power over her and he never cashes in. He never holds it over her. And I don't know if it's out of like family loyalty.
It's just because he's not a total douchebag. Well, she is. She'll hold everything over people.
But he likes to play the game. He's good at the game. He has said he's good at the game. He likes to play the game. And when it comes to his sister, he cannot do it.
Maybe like subconsciously he's jealous of Jaime or something.
Yeah, or it's, the children, or maybe it's Tommen. And I mean, he had given up on her until he realized that she was quote unquote pregnant again.
That's true. That's a good point.
And everything changed. We still don't know what they talked about in that finale, right?
About that, yeah.
Oh, everybody is with good reason to, because we know it's been set up for 7 seasons that Tyrion becomes a total wanker in front of his sister for some reason.
Fucking wanker.
So, it's I like the way that they continue with this thread, and I think that it's something that nobody talks about. It's just a character.
Yeah, it's really not talked about, so it's important. Good thing that we're talking about it now. Good call. I've never really thought about it much before at all, actually. How he just kind of like loses his edge when he's around her in terms of the way
you know what? That's a perfect way to say it. That's a perfect way to say it. He loses his edge.
I mean, he still stays sharp of tongue and consistently manages to get like the better of her in terms of witty dialogue and
they're so good at it.
But you're right, in terms of manipulating her on like a deeper or more hardcore level, he sort of like backs down or like doesn't do it.
He's had the opportunity to take her down so many times, and he's never done it, even though she's tried to have him killed like half a dozen times easy.
Yeah. The trial, Sir Mandon Moore, many times.
Yeah. So
anyways, she put a bounty on him, after he escaped King's Landing. Killed a whole bunch of dwarves to try to get to him.
I'm sure she tried to do more than just pinch his wiener when he was a baby. She probably tried to kill him then too.
Yeah, probably.
So, anyways, so that, and then Tywin and Tyrion had their scene later on that we didn't talk about at all, which was a fantastic scene. It's funny because Tywin at the beginning is doing all of his letter writing, and while Tyrion sits there and he does that. He does that with all 3 of his kids, I think, at one point.
And there's one point where Cersei
does it.
She's pretending to do it.
She carries the torch.
Right, and then but the Queen of Thorns calls her out on it. Oh, quit pretending to write anything. I know you're not writing anything. Tywin did that, but not you.
Nobody cares about you, stupid bitch.
You're no Tywin.
And then if you have the script in front of you, what Tywin says to Tyrion at the end of that scene is just
fucked up.
Such a gut punch, and I can't remember it off the top of my head.
That was supposed to be on my top 5, I think. I don't know how that didn't end up on there, that scene. I'll grab it real quick.
While you're looking for it, so what's funny to me is that we learn, I wish that I wrote down more in my notes, but Pycelle has always been Tywin's guy, right?
Well, Cersei's guy for sure.
Well, because
back and forth,
we saw that deleted scene.
Oh, right. Tywin.
Of that, right? But also, Tyrion is like, why didn't you come to see me? And Tywin goes, well, Pycelle told me that you were fine. He assured me that you were fine, and blah, 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 blah. So what's interesting to me is that Tywin showed up and probably had no idea what Tyrion has been up to, because he made a lot of assumptions in that scene that weren't true. He was drinking, he was whoring, he wasn't doing anything. He totally mishandled his power.
Maybe if he knew what actually happened, he wouldn't have criticized him so much and said, I'm never giving you Casterly Rock. If he knew what a fine example Tyrion had set of the Lannisters.
There was no way for him to know, because Pycelle was imprisoned. He wasn't taken out of that. Pycelle was found out as a traitor, and he was taken away for a while. And then
he's in the black cells.
Tyrion never let him back in. The only person that Pycelle really talked to was Cersei after that. When she and Pycelle just wanted to get back at Tyrion. at that point.
Yep.
So Tywin probably honestly has no idea.
That makes it all even more fucked up. I hadn't even thought about it that way. So fucked up. But yeah, I found the scene. He gets there, and
Cool.
just like Cersei, Tywin is assuming that he wants something, right? He's like, why can't I just visit my father? Like, why must I want something, right? And he's such a douche. So he's like, like, what the hell do you want? Like, and he's like, listen, I organized the defense of this city while you held court in the ruins of Harrenhal. I led the foray into when the enemies were at the gate, while your grandson, the king, quivered in fear behind the walls.
All true. Yeah,
I bled in the mud for our family, and as a reward, I was trundled off to some dark little cell. But what do I want? A little bloody gratitude would be a good start, right?
Yep.
It's just some basic respect, dude. Like,
yep.
That would be fucking great. And he's such a douche. Jugglers and singers require applause. You're a Lannister. Do you think that I demanded a garland of roses every time I suffered a wound on the battlefield?
You came in on a horse.
Right. Yeah.
Into the throne room.
And how often are you
idiot.
in the vanguard?
Sorry, go on. He makes me so mad in this
Now
scene.
I have 7 kingdoms to look after, and 3 of them are in open rebellion. So tell me what you want. And he says, I want what is mine by right. Jaime is your eldest son, heir to your lands and your titles, but he is Kingsguard, forbidden from marriage or inheritance. The day Jaime put on the white cloak, he gave up his claim to Casterly Rock. I am your son and lawful heir. I don't know why he's pressing this at this moment. Tywin's still alive, so why would he give up Casterly Rock when he's alive? Maybe just because he's going to be living at King's Landing to serve the hand position. I guess. So Tyrion's like, put me in control while you're gone, I guess. So he's like, you want Casterly Rock? And he's like, it's mine by right. And this is where it starts to get really fucked up. In a couple seconds, he starts off mild. Every wild scene starts off normal and then transitions into the bizarre and goes off the rails, right? So he says, we'll find you accommodations more suited to your name and as a reward for your accomplishments during the Battle of Blackwater Bay. And when the time is... So it does seem like he knows something about Tyrion's accomplishments. And when the time is right, you will be given a position fit for your talents so that you can serve your family and protect our legacy. And if you serve faithfully, you'll be rewarded with a suitable wife. And this is where it transitions to the fucked up part.
Right.
And I would let myself be consumed by maggots before mocking the family name and making you heir to Casterly Rock.
I hate him.
And he's just like super hurt by this and just says, why? Why? What the fuck? And it's just like, it's painful to watch like Tyrion taking this, and he can't even like look at Tywin coming up and says, why? You ask that? You who killed your mother to come into the world? You are an ill-made, spiteful little creature full of envy, lust, and low cunning. Men's laws give you the right to bear my name and display my colors since I cannot prove that you are not mine. And to teach me humility, the gods have condemned me to watch you waddle about wearing that proud lion that was my father's sigil and his father's before him. But neither gods nor men will ever compel me to let you turn Casterly Rock into your whorehouse. Go, now. Speak no more of your rights to Casterly Rock. Go. And at that moment when he says go, he's sort of like postured behind his desk in an aggressive stance, glaring at Tyrion, and he's like the most imposing figure like we've seen in this whole show to this point. Like nobody has looked that like intimidating as Tywin in that moment. And during this last little speech there, Tyrion is so shook he can't even look at him. They don't make eye contact, and Tywin is sort of pacing, like ranting and like shaking his head, looking at Tyrion as Tyrion won't even look at him. And I think that is even disgusting Tywin more, that he won't even make eye contact with him, and just makes him look even more weak and pathetic at the moment. And it's just like setting off Tywin even more, I think. Mm-hmm. And So Tyrion just like walks out, and at that moment, and it's just like the worst, like horrible. Like it's one of the worst moments of the entire series. I think most brutal moments of the entire series to experience.
It's a horrible speech.
It's horrible. It's
the only
horrible.
thing that gets you through it is knowing that guy is going to meet the end of a crossbow.
Yeah, in the most embarrassing way.
It just like, and you just can't even like wait for it. Like you're just sitting there and you're like, yeah, motherfucker. Well, he's gonna kill you with a crossbow.
Yeah.
Well, you're taking a crap. So I don't want to hear it from you.
He totally rakes Tyrion over the coals here for no reason.
I know. And if he only really knew, I just don't think that he knew. Maybe I'm wrong, but
attacks him for things that he out of his control. You killed your mother to come into this world, totally out of his control, not his fault. You're an ill maid, referring to his dwarfism,
right.
not his control.
Not his fault.
Spiteful little creature. Maybe he's spiteful because you're an asshole. So
because nobody's given him any love.
Yeah, full of envy, lust. I mean, that's understandable. How can you, like, if you're a dwarf?
If your whole family doesn't love you, why wouldn't he go to a whorehouse to try and get some sort of physical touch?
If lust is the only form of connection you can find because you don't have love, then, I mean, I guess you're going to resort to lust. And low cunning.
Just getting sad.
He's not of low cunning. Like, Tyrion is high cunning.
Well, I think he's smarter than Tywin, and I think Tywin knows it.
Yeah, I agree. Tywin is very smart, but it's like a cruel kind of smartness that it's like only a part of the full picture. You know what I mean? And Tyrion has the intelligence, but the humanity as well, which makes him a more well-rounded person to be. That would make for a better leader. That would result in better results for the people as a whole, I believe. Whether it would be as a liege lord like Tywin or as a ruler or a cabinet member or whatever. But Tywin is just the worst, most awful, hateful, spiteful person, and no wonder the Lannister family as a whole and Cersei as a person, or no wonder they're all so fucked up, because Tywin is just like a font of just psychological
but it wasn't
trauma.
and it's interesting that you say that, because Jaime and Tyrion, Tyrion was always kind of like known as the good Lannister, and Jaime, we see him go through this tremendous arc, and it's not until he gets away from his family that he actually finds out who he is. And I think that says a lot to kind of the upbringing that they all had. Yeah. That they couldn't really find out who they were because they were under the thumb of this really imposing father.
Machiavellian dictatorial despot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And no mother in their life.
Yeah.
So and
that made Tywin worse too, because I guess Joanna Lannister
probably humanized him.
Yeah, he would smile around her. He would laugh around her. Like, he had love with her, apparently. So it was like, and she was his cousin, too.
He never should have left Arya. Arya made him laugh.
Yeah.
Arya made him smile. Did you notice that Roz found out that Shay was a whore?
Yeah, I don't know how she found that out, or she could just tell, or something.
No, well, she's really good at finding stuff out, right? I think that was the moment. She's working for both of them. She's working for Varys and Littlefinger. Now, who she tells that information to and how it gets back to Cersei and Tywin, it's one of them. It could be either of them. But I don't think that they knew that Shay was Tyrion's whore until Roz found out that Shay was a whore. Now, the only
how did
reason
she
why
find out that? It seems like she already knew.
So she says,
women, girls like us. Yeah.
She says, given where we started.
Right.
And I think that, they both started from very low backgrounds. I think that she can kind of tell. Maybe it's like they can sniff it out on each other. I don't know. I've never been a whore, so I don't know.
The thousands of men.
I don't know what the markers are, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you have to be one to know one. I'm not really sure. I also like the fact that, Roz talked about how she grew up underneath the shadow of Winterfell.
Right. Yeah, that was a good, I like that whole thing too. Bring that up.
She's a northerner.
And it was a nice,
callback.
pictorial way to, like, it was a nice description of it, like a cool symbolism, like in the shadow of Winterfell. I don't know. I just like that the way that she described it was cool.
But you got an idea that Shay is loyal to Sansa. I always had the feeling that Shay would die for Sansa if it came to that. She loved Sansa up until the point that Sansa married Tyrion.
Oh, right.
Right. That was probably seen to her as a betrayal. And I think only because Shay, as fierce and wonderful as she was still super limited. And I don't think that she was able to see big picture. I think she took things at face value, and she didn't really... that argument you're making right now, that she's not like fully with it all the time, she doesn't see the big picture, that argues like against the idea of her being a faceless man too, because the faceless man would probably see like big picture type stuff. I just think that she's really obtuse, but she's more interested in saving her pride than anything else. But I do think that little scene between Roz and Shay, that Roz got a little piece of information about Shay, and it was just a little puzzle piece that anybody who's trying to put it together kind of needs that piece. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. All of a sudden she shows up around the same time as Tyrion. Now all of a sudden she's serving Sansa.
Yep.
She's, so.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, so that's a good angle to bring up. And
then my last little note.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Is that we see Qyburn for the first time. Ho!
Right. Did you just call me a hoe?
Yep. That's where they found Qyburn alive. Right. Should have just driven a sword through his heart.
But then that would have been a lot less entertaining for us.
Yeah, okay.
That covers your notes?
Yeah, how about you?
I thought it was funny. We had a couple characters. I mentioned Tyrion couldn't look at Tywin because he was so shook by what was happening right when Tywin was lambasting him. Tarly, Samwell couldn't look at Jorah Mormont either when he asked him about the ravens. Did you send the ravens? Tarly, look at me. Did you send the ravens? He can't even look at her. He's just too ashamed.
You had one
just shakes
job.
his head. Yeah, that was your job. Your only job. And he gives that ominous warning, which I think is worth mentioning. We need to get back to the wall. It's a long march. We know what's out there, but we have to make it. We have to warn them, or before winter's done, everyone you've ever known will be dead.
AKA Jon Snow's season 7 speech.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I thought it was another funny parallel as Jon was walking through the Wildling camp. People started throwing stuff at him like they threw cow pies at Joffrey. Yeah. And they're both kings. So
yeah, okay.
Because he's Aegon Targaryen. He's born a king.
That's true. Oh gosh, I can't wait to see that play out. Yes, sorry, I got really excited all of a sudden.
Two kings getting stuff thrown at them. So I thought that was another funny little parallel with two entirely different reactions. Joffrey freaks out. Who threw they poops on me? And
kill them all.
Jon just kind of doesn't really care. So I thought that was kind of funny. Cool seeing Tormund, like we said. I thought it was so funny that Jon mistook him for the King of the Wall, and then
it was the best moment.
Not only did he mistake him for the King of the Wall, but he simultaneously used the wrong customs as well. So he sort of double made a fool of himself.
Idiot.
Which is great.
Your Grace.
Yeah, I liked seeing Ciarán Hinds because he's a great actor. He played Julius Caesar on the I think it's HBO show, also Rome.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is a great show. I recommend watching that if you guys haven't watched it. It's kind of it's not Game of Thrones, but it's along the same vein of not medieval, but Roman history with armor and stuff like that. So it's cool, and it's got Mance Rayder in it. I was impressed by Jon's thinking that in that scene. Like I said, I thought it was funny, or I thought it was wild. We got to see Tyrion examining his scar, and looking at that in the mirror and seeing his reaction was interesting and really sad.
I like that they approached the. I heard that your nose was cut off.
I was just gonna.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's cool. I was fine. I was stumbling upon it right as you mentioned it. Cersei says. Cersei says they said you'd lost your nose, but it's not as gruesome as all that, which is kind of a book nod. I won't say why.
But it is a book nod.
Yeah. And I liked his response to the man who cut me lost more than his nose. And he had some great responses in this scene in general, like when he's talking to Cersei. He had another one where she makes the same joke as Pycelle about how he doesn't need much space. And he's like, oh,
yeah,
you must be proud to be as funny as a man whose balls brush his knees.
That was a great line.
Great line. And then he had another one at the end where she says, you're a clever man, but not half as clever as you think you are. And he says, still makes me more clever than you. Which is great. I just love how he always is one-upping her in terms of his clever one-liners. It was painful to see scummy Roose Bolton advising Robb. And,
I hate him.
Seeing that huge army march down that very thin road made me think about the logistics of moving and supplying large battles, or large forces, I should say. So that was interesting. And Tywin had very nice penmanship. I think that's worth mentioning. Looked very, very impressive. Sansa and Shae kind of played a game similar to the Game of Faces, where Sansa's coming up with stories about the backstories of these ships.
Shae's like, I don't care.
Right, and it's the second time we've seen her not wanting to play a similar game where she has to tell a story, because she doesn't want to tell anything about her backstory when she's playing that drinking game with Tyrion too, right? And that sort of argues against her being a faceless man as well, because you'd think that a faceless man would be super adept at these games with all the practice, so they'd just play at any opportunity, make up a story, because there's no reason why, and they can't. They're so good at it, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think that also argues against that argument of Shae being a faceless man. I have Bay approaches Baelish when he walked over to manipulate Arya
with his Baelish voice,
Sansa.
her little finger voice.
And I liked how I do like how Raz warned Shae of Baelish and told her to be careful of her around him. Telling be careful of Sansa, protect her from Baelish because he's crazy. And we should note that Baelish mentioned to Sansa, he said, what was it? Lovely day for it. Watching the ships. Lord Baelish, might I speak with Lady Sansa alone for a moment? I saw your mother not long ago. She's very eager to see you.
Ugh.
And your sister. He mentions that her sister. And, every other time that I've watched this, I sort of just took it as a bluff that, he was playing it off as if
you feel
Arya
differently now.
was with... Yeah, Arya was with Kat, but now I feel like he's telling her, I just saw Arya. He doesn't implicit or explicitly say that she wasn't with Kat, but he kind of pauses and then says, and your sister. So it's sort of like it's like a separate occurrence. So he may be telling her that, hinting that I just saw her sister with Tywin, essentially, as his cupbearer. So he may know. This may be a signal that this character Baelish does know. So that was interesting. It's interesting that he chose to tell her that information.
Absolutely.
So that was cool. I liked that little thing. I liked talking about growing up in the shadow of Winterfell. I liked Roz's line. She's very poetic in this scene. The description of growing in the shadow was really cool. I grew up in the shadow of her father's castle. And then the next line, too. The day she was born, they rang the bells from sunrise till sunset. I just thought that was a really cool...
visual.
Yeah, really neat visual, amazing concept. So I thought that was cool writing. Is this our first time that we see a vantage shot of Dragonstone?
No.
Because I know it was dark when Stannis was introduced at the beginning of season 2. We must have seen it, but whatever. It looked crazy. We saw it here, and I was like, wow, this Dragonstone looks amazing.
I love Dragonstone.
Yeah.
That's where I would want to live.
Dragonstone is really cool, yeah. Hard to pick a different place than that. Or it would be interesting to see Harrenhal in its prime, too, before it was melted.
Well, and who doesn't want to live on their own island?
Yeah. Storm's End is supposed to be really cool, too. Big round
Maybe we'll see
area
it.
with 100-foot thick walls. Like impossible to get into Storm's End. There's some interesting stuff about that in the books.
We're going to have to see it, right? Like before this is all over?
I don't know. It would be cool. I really hope we see it, yeah. But it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see it at this point, considering we only have 6 episodes left.
We saw Casterly Rock, and that was awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though we saw like
Very
30
briefly.
seconds of it.
Yeah. There's an interesting line where who's it? Davos is talking with Stannis, and Davos says, someone says, "I do not judge people for the gods they worship. If I did," he says to Melisandre, "If I did, I'd have thrown you in the sea before you ever set foot on Dragonstone." And I was like, wow, that's ballsy too, in a precarious position, like speaking out like that.
Yeah.
Hardcore. So that was pretty wild. I thought it was interesting too that when he's saying that, they're talking about the situation, and she's like, I could have saved those men. When you fought on Blackwater Bay, was it me? Did I set those ships ablaze? I wasn't there when wildfire killed our men by the thousands. I could have saved them. You would have taken the city. Stannis would now sit upon his rightful throne, and your son would stand beside you. And as she's saying that, Stannis kind of like gets real pissed and stands up and walks out towards the balcony. And Davos, it looks like, hadn't really considered it from that angle. Maybe that his intervention had caused things to go awry, because it stuns him into silence, and he doesn't respond, and he just sort of sits there and thinks about it for a second. And he's wondering if it's true, And then she goes on, and this is when she manipulates him. Do you hear them screaming? All those burning men in the water crying for their mothers, for their gods, for help, until the moment the Blackwater swallowed them? Don't despair, Sir Davos, when I told your son is true. Death by fire is the purest death. So brutal. I was like, oh my God, she told him. And he freaks out as he's being dragged away. This woman is evil. She's the mother of demons. Which I thought was an interesting foil to the mother of dragons.
Dragons.
Right? And just as Jon is a foil, ice to fire, Jon sort of a foil, even though they're like on the same like path, sort of. She's the foil as well, and she sort of has this connection to Jon because she resurrected Jon, right? Mm-hmm. So if she's the mother of demons and she gave life to Jon, does that make Jon a demon? Like, is something going to happen with Jon?
I don't know.
I keep talking about it.
Discussions about whether or not his heart beats.
Yeah, I think it'd be wild if like something happened and like the Night King touches him and he like turns evil or something. Like, how cool would that be? That'd be so cool.
No.
All of a sudden, Jon Snow, the King of the North, it's like,
stop doing that.
He has to like fight against Daenerys. He like stabs her, and then Drogon sets them both on fire or something.
Oh my gosh! Stop! Stop!
Cool.
You're breaking my heart, man.
There was a great moment too that we mentioned when Joffrey was surprised by Marjorie stopping the city, and he's sort of peering out of his carriage. He's like peering out in wonder as she's doing her thing, and she's like stepping in the poop.
She like doesn't even care.
Yeah, she's total opposite of Cersei, which is so funny. And he's watching in astonishment. And like you mentioned, it would have been interesting to see how he would have turned out with this type of influence in his early childhood as well. So yeah, I liked when Cersei said, "You might find a bit of armor quite useful once you become queen." She's right about this. I also liked her line when she said that, Joffrey tells me you stopped your carriage at Flea Bottom on your way back from the Sept this morning. Yes, I paid a visit to the orphanage at the Sept the High Septon told me about. The lowest among us are no different from the highest if you give them a chance and approach them with an open heart. An open heart is what you'll get in Flea Bottom if you're not careful, my dear.
Yeah.
Thought that was a really good line. So that was really funny. And then they go on to talk about, hunger turning men into beasts. I'm glad House Tyrell has been able to help in this regard. They tell me 100 wagons arrive daily now from the Reach. Wheat, barley, apples. We've been blessed. We had a blessed harvest. And of course, it's our duty to assist the capital in this time of need. It's sort of foreshadowing how that food supply from the Reach gets cut off in season 7.
Oh,
when
yeah.
Daenerys burns the food, the loot train. And things are going to get bad in season 8 for King's Landing. There's going to be starvation and things happening. It's going to be pretty fucked up, I think. That was not like just like some aside thing, some random thing that happened. The burning of the food in that loot train is going to be important. I know it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're completely right.
Yeah. So that pretty much wraps up my notes as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so we will be right back with some news.
Listen, Bubs, hear that? Sounds of the whispering winds of shit.
Look what we got, Randy. Shitstorm troopers. You idiots have loaded up a hair-trigger, double-barrel shit machine gun, and the barrel's pointed straight at your own heads.
So, like the barrel of the gun's bent back?
Let's go, Randy. These boys want to play hardball. We can play hardball, too. He grew up as a little shit spark from the old shit flint, and then he turned into a shit bonfire, and then driven by the winds of his monumental ignorance, he turned into a raging shit firestorm. The old shit liner's coming to port. I'll be there to tie her up. It's already started, my dear good friend.
What started, Mr. Leahy?
The shit blizzard.
Rest in peace, John Dunsworth. And we're back with news. Take it away, Lady K.
I will. I just wanted to say before we get started with our news, a big thank you to Amanda Rogerson for getting our news together this week. It's safe to say that I am very afraid of spoilers. Please don't be a dick and send me spoilers when I say that. But but she was very, very kind, and she sent me some articles that were spoiler free so that I could remain in the dark and pure for
unsullied,
the upcoming season. Yes, unsullied. I like that. Yeah. I can remain unsullied. So thank you to Amanda Rogerson.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I've heard people use unsullied referring to people who haven't read the books before.
Oh,
so,
I
like,
love
unspoiled by book knowledge. You know?
I love it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good one.
So this first article comes from the Huffington Post. It's titled, Peter Dinklage reacts to fans saying Doritos ad confirms Tyrion is a Targaryen. First of all,
fire thing.
Anybody who hasn't seen this ad, go to our Facebook page right now. It's on there. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I love it. I've seen it like 20 times.
I played the audio from the ad during our break last week. I actually included the Busta Rhymes part and the Missy Elliott part.
Yay! It's just the best.
I just didn't. I took out everything that said Doritos.
Pay us, Doritos.
Yeah.
So the article reads, of all the Super Bowl commercials, only one was complete fire, ... and ice. In one of the top ads of the night on Sunday, Doritos and Mountain Dew brought us Peter Dinklage and Morgan Freeman in a rap battle. Dinklage did the lip-syncing gymnastics on Busta Rhymes' verse from A Look at Me Now in a Room Full of Fire.
That was impressive.
It was awesome.
Even just like mouthing that, it's pretty fast.
I was imagining him dressed as Tyrion in between takes, filming season 8, trying to get Busta Rhymes lyrics in his director's chair, and just the whole thought of that just sent me into laughter.
Yeah. Yeah, bus a bus.
Bus a bus.
Flip mode. Flip mode squad is the greatest.
I am a 90s rap girl.
Oh, yeah?
So
give me some more.
I love Busta Rhymes.
Yo, split for the weed at. Give me some more.
I need to listen to Busta Rhymes now. Dinklage did the lip-syncing gymnastics on Busta Rhymes' verse from Look at Me Now in A Room Full of Fire because his Doritos chips were so hot. Duh. Meanwhile, Freeman lip-synced Missy Elliott's Get Your Freak On in A Room Full of Ice, thanks to his obviously very chilly Mountain Dew. It was a battle that could rule the Seven Kingdoms and even inspired Game of Thrones fans to tweet that the ad might confirm a long-held fan theory that Dinklage's character Tyrion is actually a Targaryen.
Does that mean that Morgan Freeman is the Night King?
Yes. And God. On Monday, HuffPost asked Dinklage about his reaction to the fan response and his thoughts on Tyrion possibly being a Targaryen. So Dinklage says, quote, "I love every single theory the fans of our show have because they're so much fun.
Me too.
They get to show the dedication and love they have for the show, but you have to understand that it is a Doritos commercial. It is not Game of Thrones. So
It's not
fans
subject to the same level of analysis, people.
So fans are sort of stretching the limit with that theory when you're branching out to Frito-Lay commercials. But I say that with all love and respect. Please, I love them. I love the fan theories they have now until the show is finally over." So that is actually a little excerpt from a much longer article. I suggest going to check it out because there's a whole interview with Peter Dinklage. If you want to check it out, it's at Huffington. It's on HuffPost, Huffington Post. So yeah. Check it out.
Dinklage.
I'll probably try and post it to our various social media platforms later.
Cool. Our next item is an article from Mass Live. Game of Thrones parody to bring songs humor to city stage. Fans of HBO's Game of Thrones can see 7 seasons worth of their beloved award-winning drama lampooned in a new musical comedy, Musical Thrones, a parody of Ice and Fire. What in the actual fuck? I want to see this. I hope it's the cast of the people who did the musical in Bravos in season 7 or 6.
Oh,
how funny would that be? The parody, which comes to city stage in downtown Springfield. Oh my God, there's a Springfield in every state. Which one is it? For 2 evening performances on February 15th to 16th, is composed by John and Al Kaplan, the masterminds behind the long-running Silence, the musical. There's a lot of story in 7 seasons to condense into one show. There are some 19 songs and 1 in almost every scene. They're catchy and big, and I'm so impressed with the Kaplans, said the show's director, TJ Daw. Boasting 7 seasons, 5 actors, 1 dragon, and 90 minutes of hilarity on its promotional poster, the new show just began its national tour in January. It brings the popular HBO fantasy's beloved and be-hated characters to life in a raucous, quick-change, sing-your-heart-out style comedic fest with songs like Winter is Coming and Valar Morghulis. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to see what the national tour is all about for sure.
What is it called? A musical Thrones, a parody of Ice and Fire. Wow.
I hope Coldplay writes the songs.
Yeah, I want to help write too.
The last item that we have is an article from Superhero Hype, but really just Google it. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it was everywhere in the matter of nanoseconds.
Thank you for including this.
What was funny was that somebody posted it to my personal page. Then I posted it to the Game of Thrones page. Then Duncan sent it to me. Then Jason Kabazzi sent it to us. And then Rima Joe sent it to me.
And I posted it to the Zedhead page. It was like all instantaneously, it hit us all. Yeah, from
and that was my punchline was like this all happened in a span of 90 seconds.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was insane.
It was crazy. Oh my God. And we haven't even mentioned what the article is yet. So the hype,
if you
it's going to be big.
don't know what it is Game of Thrones creators to write and produce a new series of, that's right, Star Wars movies.
Star Wars!
It's so exciting!
A Star of Wars! It's going to be a Star of Wars!
So just as a little side note, my husband, we're a huge Star Wars family, first of all. But my husband kind of is the leader of that pack in this house.
Nice.
And I've never seen him so giddy.
Oh, right. You told me he freaked out.
He just goes, what? He couldn't believe it. It was a very good moment in our house. There was a lot of high-fiving.
I totally freaked out. Oh, man.
So the article reads, Lucasfilm has announced that the creators of HBO's Game of Thrones franchise are headed to a galaxy far, far away. Seriously, I can't even handle the awesomeness of this.
Yeah.
David Benioff and D.B. Weiss will write and produce a new series of Star Wars films for the company, which are separate from both the episodic Skywalker saga and the previously announced trilogy that is in development already from Rian Johnson, who did Star Wars The Last Jedi. So, just real quick, this is going to be a this is a really big deal, I think, for them in the fact that
Oh my God.
they've been working with source material for so long, and they've been working with George R.R. Martin telling them how the story should be, and like kind of thematically and
Yeah, they're on
with,
8 years of this.
Right. This is the first time that they get a blank page. They don't have to refer to source material. So I'm really looking forward to their creativity.
Absolutely.
And
think about the opportunity, the first time that they have the creative control like this, and it's for Star Wars!
I know! I can't even believe it!
Dude, like, what the hell?
I don't know if you guys can really tell. Duncan and I are a little excited about this.
I would shit if I got to have any involvement with Star Wars at all. And jumping not only from Game of Thrones, but then to Star Wars, it's like after, what are they going to do? Just like follow through on a suicide pact after they finish with the Star Wars movies? What can you do after that? They just conquered the film and movie universe.
I'm just really glad that the scripts are all written for Game of Thrones, because I don't know that I'd be able to think about anything else.
Yeah, after being,
I would just be like, can you believe what's happening to us? Can you believe it? Like, Game of Thrones is huge, but this is fucking Star Wars. Star Wars.
I mean, there's more hours of Game of Thrones than there are of Star Wars. I think that Game of Thrones, 100 years from now, is going to parallel Star Wars as being on the same level of epicness as in terms of like franchises and mythologies of like fictional universes go. I bet that Star Wars. And if you look at it
from that standpoint, then that means that they got to produce and bring to film something from George R.R. Martin and from George Lucas.
And that's what I mean. They conquered TV and film, both of them. Like, they can just kill themselves when they're done and like be champions of the entertainment universe.
They just need to do something from J.R.R. Tolkien, and they'll have the trifecta, right?
Yeah. Jeez. Oh my god.
So, anyways, if you want to read anything about that, just go Google it. You know, I'm sure it's there. I'm sure there's 100 articles about this. As you could tell, this is very big news.
Go forth, young Padawans.
Nerds like us.
Princes and princesses. Yes, go forth.
So that's it for news.
Awesome. So next we'll jump to our Game of Thrones as Myth series, and this time we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're not actually going to use an essay from the Game of Thrones as Myth series of essays from winterscoming.net. Instead, we're going to read a summary of an essay by our friend LML, aka Lucifer Means Lightbringer, who wrote a series of essays about A Song of Ice and Fire that's called The Mythical Astronomy of Ice and Fire. And he unboxes a whole lot of symbolism and astronomy and mythology and stuff. It's like next level type analysis of Game of Thrones, or specifically of A Song of Ice and Fire. It's really would be book spoiler filled. Warning. Not this summary, but the essays themselves. But if you guys have read the books and haven't listened to... he's written these essays, which you can find by Googling The Mythical Astronomy of Ice and Fire. And he also has spoken them, read them aloud in podcast form. And there's a podcast, The Mythical Astronomy of Ice and Fire, too. So do that. Check it out. And the podcast is great because he has segments of music interspersed, separating the sections by this band called Animals as Leaders, featuring guitarist Tosin Abasi. That is, like... amazing, like just phenomenal guitarist. You won't even believe. So we will jump right into this. This is LML's summary of The Mythical Astronomy of Ice and Fire, Part 5, Tyrion Targaryen.
Hello, friends, fellow nerds, and secret Targaryens. Many have discussed the possibility of Tyrion being a Targaryen. I know I have. And at this point, the body of evidence is fairly well known, both the logistical evidence involving Joanna and Ares and the more metatextual clues about Tyrion and dragons. On his Mythical Astronomy blog and podcast, LML has developed a certain style of symbolic analysis, and what he does in his essays and podcasts is use mythical astronomy and symbolism to show evidence in support of Tyrion being a Targaryen. This is an entirely new way to approach this issue, and the evidence is quite overwhelming. So open your ears.
For example, Tyrion is many times labeled a gargoyle, Well, the story of the first gargoyle involves a fellow named Saint Romanus slaying a dragon and attempting to burn its body, only to find the head and neck would not burn. Unburnt. Interesting. Having been super hardened to stone through the years breathing fire, Romanus mounted the head of the dragon, the head of the dead stone dragon, to the walls of his newly built church in order to scare away evil spirits. In other words, the first gargoyle was a dragon, and Tyrion is a gargoyle.
Tyrion is also labeled a monkey demon 4 times specifically, as well as a monkey or a demon on several other occasions. Well, monkey demons are a thing, at least in Chinese mythology. There's a monkey demon king named Sun Wukong who wields a black iron staff that burns with fire, and he stole that fiery weapon from, wait for it, a dragon. In fact, he defeats 4 different dragons and takes their magical armor and other goodies. Sun Wukong can also cause the sun to darken by summoning storms, too, if you can believe that. He's fiery demon monkey with black dragon weapons.
Both gargoyles and Sun Wukong are associated with waking from stone as well. Sun Wukong is actually a stone demon monkey who hatches from a stone egg at the top of a mountain, while many stories about gargoyles involve them coming to life at night. Dragons waking from stone? You don't give a character like Tyrion gargoyle and Sun Wukong symbolism if he's not a dragon himself, in LML's opinion. And it's interesting, too, the part about Sun Wukong hatching from a stone egg at the top of a mountain. Where was Tyrion born? At Casterly Rock. A rock at the top of a mountain, a stone egg at the top of a mountain. So there's a lot of similarities, really interesting ones between Sun Wukong and Tyrion.
If I was ever to be trapped in an elevator with somebody at this point in my life, it would be George R.R. Martin.
Yes.
Cool. So I just want to be trapped in an elevator with
as long as
for
it's not
6
too
hours.
long, because then he might try to eat you.
Well,
I'm just gonna get so fucked up.
You know what? He won't try to eat me because he's always got some kind of a turtle on his shoulder or something. So we'll be having turtle soup. It'll be just fine.
Oh, no. You think he'd let you live over his turtle? That's his turtle.
Oh, yeah. He is straight savage.
yeah. Straight savage. He killed Ned Stark, remember?
Yeah. Turtle soup or Kristen soup?
Yeah, Kristen soup. Yeah, instead of Kristen eating turtle soup, it'll be turtle eating Kristen soup.
Perfect. That sounds, you know what? That sounds right.
Definitely.
Okay. And you also don't give repeated and flagrant dragon dreams to a character like Tyrion if he's not of Targaryen descent, especially not in a world where it is well established that people with the blood of the dragon in their veins dream of dragons in a prophetic way. Oh my gosh. As Maester Aemon explains on his deathbed, these dragon dreams are so vivid as to seem like memories, even though the people who dream them have never seen dragons before. All this and more points to Tyrion as a Targaryen, and LML goes into depth on all these subjects in the main essay and podcast. I've been saying this for a while, and I get ridiculed and mocked when I say this.
No, there's lots of good evidence, like lots of it.
I have family members that think that I'm insane.
No way. I'm gonna ask LML if we can read like the whole essay on the show or something, because that'd be really cool.
Oh, cool.
Maybe he'll let us. Who knows? That'd be cool.
Maybe he wants to come on and
read it with us or something. That'd be so cool. Wow, that'd be
an extra
really cool.
episode.
Yeah, we'll have to email him. Let's do some Ravens calls.
This one comes from Dave Hal Berg. Greetings, Dunc and K.
Greetings.
Greetings. I like it that he realizes the Dunc and K of the play on Dunk and Egg.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you. I enjoyed last week's podcast with Jason. I was struck by his comment about how we rooted for Roose Bolton's bastard the first time I watched the show. Bolton seemed like a really good dude at the time. Just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him. A last note, thank you for keeping the spoilers out of the news. I also cannot stand spoilers. I'm okay with waiting for whatever happens in season 8 because that's all we get.
Yeah,
some people seem
definitely.
to forget that the anticipation can be as good as the actual thing. Not everything needs to be instantaneous.
Otherwise, foreplay wouldn't exist, right?
That's all I'm saying.
Lord Johnny of House Store says it's time for the best part of the series, Arya and the Hound.
Yeah, a lot of people like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Joe Fletcher says, my favorite episode of Game of Thrones.
What? Awesome. Yeah, it's a really, really good episode. Pam Wireman Sanders says, all I have to say is Tormund Giantsbane. This is the episode where we are introduced to Tormund and his wit. I try not to pick favorite characters because I know that is a death sentence in the world of Game of Thrones, but Tormund is definitely a favorite of the book and show. Love his personality and humor and the relationship between him and Jon Snow. And of course, Brienne later on.
Yes.
Yeah. Love Tormund too. He's one of my favorites. And I really like how Christopher Hivju, I think that's his name, right? He's great at portraying ferocity. Like he can look like wild and crazed in his combat style, and but while simultaneously being very controlled and like vicious. You know, it's like I don't know. It's just really good. He does a good job. So good casting.
I love
for
him
that.
in those hotel commercials.
Oh yeah,
I forget
yeah.
what they are.
The Wyndham Resorts.
Is that what it is?
I think so.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Yeah, he's great.
I thought it was like Expedia or Booking or something.
Yeah, he's the Wyndham Wizard.
Yeah, I love him. If you don't follow him on Instagram, just anybody who has an Instagram account, he has a fantastic Instagram account. He's really active on it, and he has great pictures. He's just full of joy. You get to see his family and his wife, and it's just
That's cool.
I don't know. He's fun to follow.
He seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, super grateful guy, very humble. It's
Nice.
cool. Yeah. So the next one comes from Sir Patrick. It is the most depressing season of the series, brightened by Arya and the Hound. This season is why so many were disappointed with season 7. They still thought the whole point of the show was heartbreak and gut-wrenching failure. Never noticed before just how Riverland-centric this season is. Looking forward to Kristen ignoring all of the damning evidence of the spider's treachery this season holds.
We'll see. I don't remember what happens with Varys this season.
I do. I think he's awesome.
I'm sure he's awesome.
It's awesome. He tells
like...
Tyrion about how he was cut, gets the guy in the crate.
Oh, the crate. Yeah, that's brutal.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a crazy scene.
It's a great, yeah.
Gigi Lugo says, so did we ever figure out why the White Walkers kept Sam alive? Ghost for the win! Enjoying these small scenes with him. Jon sees his first giant, meets Mance Rayder and Tormund. Woo! Foreshadowed by Bronn when he says Meryn Trant is better at beating little girls than fighting men. It was Gigi. I think Gigi keeps saying good stuff that we refer to during the show, and I keep forgetting it's her. One time I did remember, though. I forgot. This is how we meet Qyburn. So Roose Bolton says they killed 200 men from the north. So does that mean Qyburn is from the north? Yeah, I guess so. I wonder where. We know he trained at the Citadel. We don't really know where he was after that, though, do we? Mm-mm. Littlefinger tells Sansa that Arya is alive, so he must have known that it was her. Barristan is back. When I first watched, I wondered who it was following her. Now that I have more knowledge on everything, I'm so happy he was there. Peeping some jealousy from Ser Jorah. Overall, it was a great way to start season 3. Yeah, I think he probably was jealous and nervous at the same time. Yeah,
I know. Well, yeah, she saw jealousy, and you and I were like, he was about to get down on his knees.
Oh well, true. I mean, you could probably feel jealous of, you know, and like if Superman, you're out with a pretty girl or something, Superman comes and saves her, and she's like, "Oh, thank you, Superman." You know, you're like jealous, but you're also like "Oh, you're awesome." You know? Yeah, right.
Know. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
So it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. No, I totally. Hey, you know what? I love Jorah. Every part of Jorah, I love him.
Even those gross, scaly parts.
Hey, you know what? That was some of his best work. I watched that episode recently, like in the last week, and the little whimpers that he makes. It just you just know how much pain he's in. He's phenomenal. Anyways,
yeah, he's really good.
Matthew Rep says, now that's what I call a cold open. What a big episode for introducing new characters. Qyburn, Tormund, Missandei and Mance. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. So even though Littlefinger is Lord of Harrenhal, does he actually ever get to occupy it? Roos's men are about to take up a lengthy stay, and doesn't he go straight to the Vale with Sansa after Joffrey's death? Some of my favorite Dany moments are coming up. That slaver deserves everything that's coming to him. Yup. I don't think Littlefinger ever went to Harrenhal.
Oh, yeah. He never actually... Oh, right. Okay, yeah. He never goes to Harrenhal.
Mm-mm.
So funny. Possession's 9/10 of the law.
Yeah, that's what the
he was
Boltons
Lord.
counted on most of the time.
Yeah, true. Dreadfort. I like that name for a castle. That's pretty cool, huh?
Yes. Well, I still hate everything the Boltons are, but yes, you're right. Dreadfort is perfect.
Badass. We have an email from a traveler of the Middling Roads, citizen of Macumber's Blue Eye. Hi, guys. I've been listening for a while now, and I hear you guys referring to magic returning to the world due to Daenerys, dragons, direwolves, red gods, and the White Walkers. I think that's wrong. I believe that once magic was very strong in the realm, such as the Children of the Forest using their magics to create the wall, to separate them from men, but then it dissipates for some reason. Even the Order of the Maesters who study it with their Valyrian steel links don't understand it. Like a celestial alignment or perhaps a powerfully magic comet that appears every 1,000 years or so, it feels like something cyclical, and that the return of magic then brings dragons, direwolves, and krakens under the sea back into the world, and who knows, maybe a new breed of giants will once again walk the land. This is illustrated by pyromancy being much more potent, according to the pyromancers, the red priests who faked having flaming swords now being able to create them, Valyrian steel being able to be forged once again, magicians of Karth being able to wield real magic instead of tricks and sleight of hand. I see this as evidence of a natural phenomenon and not the manufacturing or suppression of magical energy by the Order of Maesters, as some suggest. A traveler of the Middling Roads, citizen of Macumber's Blue Eye. That is an awesome email. Thank you for writing in. One thing I had thought that the Maesters were taking measures to exterminate the dragons to dissipate magic, as if that would play a role. But I like this idea that you're posing of the natural phenomenon and like a sort of natural cycle, because it makes me think of a real world phenomenon, which, if it's true, that maybe this is what George based it on, which is really cool. So every time a civilization is conquered and destroyed, one of the things, or taken over, one of the things that they lose is their records of history. The conquerors destroy their libraries, destroy their records to eliminate their knowledge base and make themselves seem more large and significant in the grand scheme of things. And as history progresses and that old knowledge is forgotten, they occupy a larger space in the sphere of current history and knowledge, essentially. So they destroy other people's history. It's happened everywhere. From the Mayan scrolls and things being destroyed to libraries being burned and whatnot. But India has largely escaped this process, and so their ancient history is still intact. And there's a really interesting thing that's taught as fact in India and in Hinduism, and it's called the cycle of the yugas, and it's a cycle that lasts about 26,000 years. And it's based on the concept that our Earth is orbiting our sun, along with all the planets of our solar system. And we have this system around our sun. And our sun is orbiting the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Just like everything. Everything is moving. We're moving around the sun is moving around the galaxy is moving through space. There is a suggestion that, and it's taught as fact in ancient India and today, where there is a binary solar body, we can call it, that is in a rotational orbit with our sun. This would be a brown dwarf that does not emit light in a visible spectrum, so we can't see it, but it's lurking out there, and it's part of a binary pair with our star, our sun, and they're orbiting around each other. This is likely because, as far as I know, I don't think there's any stars out there that are part of a single system. They're all part of binary, trinary, multiple star systems where there could be like 8 stars orbiting one another, or 2. But one, it's either very rare or non-existent. So just statistically, the odds are that our planet is, or our sun is orbiting another star as well. It's just the time period may be so large that it's hard for us to even comprehend. May not even like really affect many of our measurements of things if it's like a huge scale like that, right? So the theory is that there's 2 phases. One phase where our sun is moving further away from the binary star. This would be called the ascending phase of the cycle of the yugas. It's like 12,500 years essentially. And then there's the descending phase where our sun is moving back towards the binary star. And must be the speculation is that there's some type of cosmic interference, maybe the combined radiation of the sun, like the secondary sun or something, adding to ours as they move closer together, and we become more affected by that other star as well. It decreases the capacity of the human brain to function. So right now they say that about 10 or 11% of our brains are fully active at any given point. The theory is that at the peak of the cycle of the yugas, at the top of the ascending, when we're farthest away from this other binary star, that 100% of the human brain is active. And it's postulated that during these time periods in history is that when the largest and most magnificent structures are built on Earth. Like people say that the Great Pyramid at Giza was built about 2,500 years ago under the reign of King Khufu in Egypt. But according to Khufu, he found it and restored it. People speculate that it's at least 12,000 years old, as well as the Sphinx, due to water erosion that's all around the Sphinx and the enclosure that it's in. Huge amounts of water erosion. So they place the age of the pyramid at least 12,000 years old. That would put it at the peak of this cycle, which would place humans at this ability to use our huge amounts of our brain, which explains how these the stones that weigh 1,000 tons. Think about a car as a ton, 2 tons. You get a 3-ton truck maybe. Stones that are 1,000, 1,200 tons. Perfect rectangles that are placed in places like Baalbek, Lebanon. Things that we can't even accomplish today, in any degree. So it seems like that. There are these interesting cycles that may be occurring in real life, and the shortest part of the cycle, at the bottom of the phase, is called the Kali Yuga, and it's known as dark time in history. It lasts about 2,000 years. It's the fastest because the gravity where our sun is by the binary star is at the fastest speed, so we sort of slingshot around the other star and head away, and everything starts to slow down, so the ascending phase is a lot longer essentially. We have more time where our brains are active, and then decreases. But interestingly, if we're exiting the Kali Yuga now, it coincides perfectly with the time period of the Dark Ages and the fall of the Roman Greek empires, then compared with now the rise of our modern civilizations. We have Aristotle, who taught the heliocentric theory 2,000 years ago. He knew that the sun, the Earth orbited the sun, and that wasn't discovered again until Galileo. So that's about 2,000 years, the exact length of the Kali Yuga, where we were plunged into an era of darkness and and lost all this scientific knowledge and things like that. So, long story, still pretty long. There may be evidence of big phenomenons of natural cycles like this. So maybe it's misinterpreting. People may see the dragons as the cause, where it may be just the result of some cosmic cycle, and that this comet that flew by allowed the dragon eggs to hatch or something like that, like you were saying. So that's pretty cool. I like this email, and it brings a lot of questions for like real life stuff into it. So awesome. Thanks for writing, kind traveler.
Cool, man.
Greetings, my lord and lady. This is Archmaester Rennie using the secret technology of the Citadel to send my voice to you. I'm going to go geographically to call out some things in this episode that introduce what I think are high points and low points of this season.
Ooh.
In the north, of course, the relationship between Jon Snow and Ygritte is a highlight, but one of my biggest disappointments of this season was Ciarán Hinds as Mance Rayder. I loved him in Rome and in Prime Suspect, and I had high hopes when I heard he'd been cast in this role, but I thought he was just meh as Mance.
A little dull.
I don't think it was all his fault. I don't think the writers gave him a lot to do in the show. In King's Landing, Joffrey is perfect. There is no imperfection in his awfulness. He is just perfectly awful. His cowardice, how savage he is to his mother when she's trying to take his side. What a complete shitbird he is. The perfection of his awfulness is a perverse highlight of this season with a spectacular payoff in the Red Wedding. Then, painful as it is, the way Tywin turns all the brilliant things and all the very human things that we saw Tyrion do in Season 2 into crimes and misdemeanors plays out brilliantly. He's as blind to Tyrion's talents as he is to Jaime and Cersei's faults, and this blindness leads to his downfall and Tyrion's long fall and ultimate rise back as Hand of the Queen.
Hand of the
In
Queen!
Essos, the introduction of Missandei, another of my favorite characters, is definitely a highlight.
Yeah.
Her creative translations show how brilliant and talented she is. I'm still hoping she and Grey Worm get a happy ending.
Me too.
Sigh. Best line of the episode, Sansa saying, "The truth is always either terrible or boring."
Yes.
Great
Thanks
way
for
she
the great
delivered it,
podcasts you're doing. Read the books.
Hell, Hydra. Thanks, Archmaester Rennie.
I love that.
Always
Thank
good
you
to hear
so
from
much.
you.
That was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Sir Duncan. Hey, Lady Kristen. This is Kira of the
Kira.
Isle of Manhattan. I am so mad that I missed chiming in on last week's episode. I love Arya. She is my main girl forever and ever. Amen. But let me get right into it. So, Sam, you had one job. Completely screwed that up. But whatever. Okay, he's alive, so, you know, it's all's forgiven. Thank God that Jon had a true story to tell Mance Rayder, because that's the only thing that saved his ass in front of that man and made him more convincing. The next thing is I feel like there's an ongoing parallel or consistency with Cersei, and that's continuing to bring her friends to Tyrion's room and pinch his tiny little peenie. Super bitch. And fourthly, I cannot believe how much luck Davos has. And I'm also noticing that everybody that's still alive, in general, it seems, or is surviving through sheer luck, they don't have any heirs. Not a single character on the show has any heirs, except for Sam. I take that back. No, not even him, because that's not his baby. That's Craster's baby. Ew. Also,
yeah, Craster has the heir.
That's not an heir. Ew. All right, never mind. I'm not getting into it.
Oh, my God.
And I completely forgot that Robb and his wife found Qyburn. Oh, my God. This man has screwed up so much.
Yes.
Just back-to-back fuck-ups. He's just like his mother.
Yep.
What else? Krasnus is so disrespectful, and I'm so glad he's going to get burned. And Sebastian, as always, is a true G.
Oh, yeah.
The real thing that I wanted to talk about is that scene between Tywin and Tyrion. There are so many levels, in my opinion, to that one scene between the two of them. And I think this scene is only about 5 minutes max. Now, as much as Tywin's being a dick, he's not wrong about Tyrion not needing to receive accolades for what he did. Tyrion had one job, and Tywin told him that it was only as a temporary hand until he returned. However, Tywin did receive a low-key ceremony, horseshit, when he was officially named as the Hand.
Double pun.
He also just saved King's Landing when Tyrion's plan was starting to fall apart. So I guess it's kind of valid, but whatever.
Really.
And I think that Tywin was trying to keep him humble and not make the same mistakes that he's made with Jaime and Cersei with their lack of hubris. I think
kind.
that Tywin was pointedly being really fucking evil to Tyrion only after he asked why he was just being so unfair to him. I think Tywin really does love Tyrion. I think he wanted to shut him down and get him out of that room before he made the confession that he actually does care about him and what his motives are behind being a dick to Tyrion. And he did a great job of it because Tyrion was shut the fuck down. No questions asked after that. If Tywin did show him any love, it would make him look completely vulnerable, and that would put a bigger target on Tyrion's back because he's already the joke of King's Landing. He does not seem... Nobody takes him seriously at all. So it would be nothing for anybody to try to take him out. And you might say, how can he love him if he tried to kill him, or at least put him on trial for Joffrey's murder? But I believe that Tywin knew or had a feeling that Jaime would rescue him. Jaime isn't a master of secrets, and Tywin knows how Jaime feels about Tyrion. He wouldn't have demolished his relationship with Jaime by killing Tyrion. And lastly, he could have killed him, Tyrion, when he was born. End of story. I think that's it. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on all of that. I'm not sure if anybody else is, I'm sure someone has made that stretch to say that Tywin's hate is the way he shows his love for Tyrion, which is still really fucked up. But I love to hear your thoughts. I'm wondering what you guys think about all of the ongoing kind of subtle themes and things that are coming to fruition now. What is it? It's going to be 4 years later. Oh my God! Did anybody see that video of? I don't want to spoil it. That video of things in that world that are happening. I'm sure it's been up, but I'm very excited. I don't care if it's spoiled me or not. I want to see what actually happens. If I'm being too vague, tough titty. I'm trying to be kind. Anyway, that's it. Nice to hear from you guys. Can't wait for the next episode. Bye.
Thanks so much for your voicemail, Kira. Sorry we're running out of time, so we don't have time to give a full response this week, but at least we got your message out there. Hope to hear from you again next week. Thanks.
Hey, Izzy. What do you think of the Dragon Show?
I think it's not good.
It's not good?
I think the color's good.
Yeah?
Dracarys.
Do you like the Dragon Show? You like Game of Thrones?
I like this.
Yeah? Do you think that Tyrion is the Valar?
Yes.
Really? What, he does with tiny hands?
Okay. Good is very good at coloring.
Do you think there's a portal in the God's Eye that leads to the center of the earth?
Yes.
Me too. Do you think Dragonstone is connected to the God's Eye? Through underground tunnels? Me too.
Me 3.
Me 4.
Me 3.
You are 3.
And the green duck said me 3.
Yeah. What do dragons say?
Why?
Yeah. What do Targaryens say?
I don't know.
They say Dracarys.
See ya.
Chia.
See ya.
See ya. Yeah, Dracarys is basically like saying, see ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.
Peace.
Peace.
Tada.
Do you think Valor Morgulis applies to women as well? Well, Daenerys doesn't seem to know that. Do you think Clegane Bowl will just be between the Mountain and the Hound?
Yes.
Really?
Uh-huh.
You think Arya will be involved too?
Yes.
I think so.
What?
Do you think the Hound and Arya were both secretly, covertly resurrected in different episodes?
Yes.
Me too. Do you think Jaime Lannister was covertly resurrected in Spoils of War?
Nope.
That's right, because it was the episode after that.
Nope.
No. Do you think Jaime is the Valonqar?
Nope.
You think Euron is the Valonqar?
Nope.
What about Arya?
No.
Who is the Valonqar?
Doesn't.
Dozen? Who's that?
Puddles.
Oh. These are people I haven't met yet. Do you think Jack and Hagar is Rhaegar in disguise?
Nope.
Me neither. I used to think that, but now I think he's actually Talissa.
Nope. Look at this guy.
No, there really is mythological precedent for it.
Look at
Ooh,
this.
interesting.
Oh, yeah.
What's this?
That's the Riverlands.
Riverlands?
Yeah, see, there's the God's Eye, and that's the Salt Flats.
Salt Flats.
And that's High Heart,
High Heart.
and that's the Trident.
Trident.
Yeah. Look, it looks like a hanging eyeball.
Hanging eyeball.
Yeah, the map looks kind of like an eyeball that's hanging down and looking at King's Landing.
Looking.
Yeah. Do you think that the Night King is actually Professor Branhattan?
No.
Really? Because I'm starting to come around on that
I
theory.
think the Night King is not good.
Yeah, you're right. He's not good.
He's bad, and I will hit him with a stick.
Really?
And I will cut him with a knife.
Really? Will it be made out of dragon glass? That's good, because that's what could probably hurt him. Do you think Jon Snow knows anything?
Yep.
Really? What does he know?
Like dragons.
Yeah?
There's no sun.
No sun, yeah, because the long winter is upon us. Do you think that Shay is really a faceless man? Me too.
Me free.
Yeah. What do you think about Varys? Is he good or bad?
Good.
Really? He's gotten to you too, huh?
Oh, yes.
Oh, man.
What?
Well, do you think Daenerys is good? Well, that's kind of a conflict of interest, if you ask me. You think Varys will betray Daenerys?
Yep.
Oh, no.
Do you think she'll go Mad Queen?
Yep.
Oh, no.
Do you think Varys is going to manipulate her into going all Mad Queen?
Yep.
Oh, jeez.
Me too.
I thought you said Varys was good.
Do you think Varys will get burned?
Tomorrow, let's have the best Christmas ever.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that 3-year-old was adorable.
Yeah. Thank you, Sir Patrick, for the interview with Lady Isabella. She's adorable. Wisdom from the mouths of babes.
All right. Regarding season 3, episode 1, let's cut right to the chase. Whatever. Listen. Okay. Look. All right. Here we go. Let's talk about Shay.
Let's.
Here we see for a second time Shay not wanting to play a game that's similar to the lying game of the Faceless Men. She doesn't want to come up with stories about people and backstories.
Yeah, what's up with that?
She reveals that she's been to both Dorne and Volantis. In fact, she reveals that she got onto a ship in Volantis. She wasn't born into prostitution. She's never been a scullery maid or a kitchen wench or a servant girl or any kind of menial labor that would translate into those jobs. She's not highborn because she doesn't know how to curtsy. She was in Volantis. She got on a ship in Volantis. She's not highborn. She was in Volantis. You're either highborn or you're a slave. But if you're a slave, you have a tattoo on your face. Your face.
Ooh, your face.
But she has no tattoo on her face.
That's true.
Could it be that is not her face, perhaps?
Could be.
She's a faceless man, guys, okay? Look at her relationship with Sansa. It's very similar to Arya's relationship with Sansa. They don't really get each other. They're not similar, yet there's somehow a bond there and this protective, sisterly quality.
That's true.
Are we ready to unequivocally accept that she is a faceless man?
I wouldn't say unequivocally, but I'd say
I know I am.
Possible. Thank you very much, Sir Patrick, for your voicemail again this week. Always good to hear from you, my friend. And just in time, we have a last-minute voicemail from Old Man Fezziwig of House Curmudgeon. I've been a listener for a while. Love the show, and you guys are doing a great job. Thank you, Old Man Fezziwig. Love the insights, the tinfoil hat theories, everything. I've finally caught up on the rewatch, and I thought I'd throw a couple thoughts your way on this episode. Love Jorah getting a little lippy with Dany on the boat. Another beautiful day on the high seas, with the poor Dothraki barfing on deck while crossing the poison water. Tywin is just brutal with Tyrion. That guy really has a problem with whores. Hard to watch this, and I think Duncan has mentioned this before, but nobody plays Wounded better than Peter Dinklage. Agreed. It hurts to watch him in this episode. My favorite part of the episode is when Margaery visits the children in the orphanage, primarily orphaned from the Battle of the Blackwater Bay. I must have a cynical memory, because I had it in my head that Margaery's good deeds were all just a ploy to cozy up to Joffrey's punchable face, but this scene shows that her desire to be queen is more than a shallow lust for power, as she seems to truly want to use her high-born power for the good of the people. It was also hilarious how Joffrey had no idea what was going on, sheltered up in his little wagon, with hanky in hand, being his cunty self. Agreed. Last but not least, Jon's meeting with Mance Rayder was excellent. I know you guys have mentioned this before, and my curmudgeonly memory isn't the greatest, but this seems to be the first time we hear Jon's "I want to fight on the side of the living" manifesto. Agreed, I think this is where it sort of solidifies for him conceptually. Anyways, keep up the great work. I need to get back to my Bengay, reading glasses, and nose hair trimming. Old Man Fezziwig out. Thank you so much, Old Man Fezziwig, for emailing this week. Looking forward to hearing back from you again soon, hopefully. All right, everybody, that's our show, episode 63. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Next week, we'll be covering Season 3, Episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to share them on air.
Yes, and if you get a chance and you like what you hear, give us a review on iTunes or on Facebook, whichever one. Give us one, give us both. Yeah, that'd be great. We'd appreciate it. Yeah. Only if you have something nice to say. Yeah. And if you'd like to call in, you can always call us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY. If you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com. Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast. Imp slap. Oh! We're also on Twitter and Instagram at GOM podcast. And give us a like on Facebook and an iTunes rating. We would love that. Do it. Mm-hmm. And be sure to check out all the other great podcasts at podcastica.com. If you are a fan of Westworld, there is a Westworld podcast happening right now from the eyes of somebody who has seen the entire season 1, so I can't listen because I'm only halfway through. In preparation for this year's season 2 of Westworld, which will be podcast on as well. Nice. That's exciting. I got to get into that show. I've heard too much good stuff. Me too. Mm-hmm. All right, that's our show. Thanks for listening. Bit of a come down from the Chamber of the Hand. But then again, I suppose you don't need much room.
Grand Maester Pycelle made the same joke. You must be proud to be as funny as a man whose balls brush against his knees. Yup. What is going on here? What is the meaning of this?
I think that his one mission in life is to be liked and to be loved. And I don't think that he knows how to go about doing that. I don't think anybody's ever taught him that.
Sorry, that's not funny.
Oh, gosh, I know. And like you see Marjorie and Loras, and I swear to you, they looked at each other and with their eyes, they said, well, this is going to be easier than we thought. Yeah, she's like, gosh, it took like a flash of my cleavage and a couple kind words, and I've got this guy eating out of the palm of my hand.
Yeah. I'd eat out of anywhere.
Yes, I know. Everybody loves Marjorie. Everybody loves Natalie Dormer. She's beautiful. Jorah looks like he kind of wants to get down on one knee, you know?
Yeah, in front of him, yeah.
Right. He's like, Sir Barristan, I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm lost, I think.
Fuck. Yeah, now I'm getting all nervous about that, yeah.
Oh, everybody is. Time ho.
Right. Did you just call me a hoe?
Yep. Oh.
I'm going to cut that out, don't worry.
Oh, you're so weird. I love it.
I told you I have a sick sense of humor.
Pay us, Doritos.
Yeah.
Who is the Valonqar?
Dozen.
Dozen?
Mm-hmm.
Who's that?
Puddles.
Oh.
Turtle soup or Kristen soup?
Yeah, Kristen soup. Yeah, instead of Kristen eating turtle soup, it'll be turtle eating Kristen soup.
Perfect. That sounds, you know what? That sounds right.
Definitely.
I think the Night King is not good.
Yeah, you're right. He's not good.
He's bad, and I will hit him with a stick.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I try not to pick favorite characters because I know that because I know that is. I'm gonna just try this sentence over again.
Okay. Imp slap.
What are you doing, Mr. Leahy?
Shit moths, Randy.
Shit moths?
Shit moths. They started off as tiny little shit larvae, Randy, and then they grew into shitapillars. A pandemic of shitapillars. Everywhere you look, Randy, shitapillars. They almost drove me over the goddamn edge, boy. I tried to exterminate them. I tried to put an end to the shitapillar's life cycle, but I failed. And now, shit moths, Randy. Every fucking one of them, shit moths.